For Jonathan Taylor, there he goes again, 50, 40, down the far sideline, he might do it again, 10, 5, touchdown, I-N-D-Y!
The Eastern Conference Championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers.
Alex Pillow wins the 109th Indianapolis 500.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Good morning, and made it to the midway point of the week, and the Colts getting ready for a road game, their first real big road test of the year against the Los Angeles Rams, along with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd, Mark Dykton. I'm Jeff Rickard. Welcome into a little Wednesday morning edition. KB, not a great night for the Indiana Fever. They kind of fought and scratched their way back a little bit at the end of the first half and a little bit at the beginning of the third quarter, and then like a 9-0 run two-thirds of the way through the third quarter, and Vegas just kind of coasted home last night.
Yeah, I think you're stretching for positives and even trying to commit to any sort of run. I thought the Vegas Aces looked like a championship team last night, and I thought as good as Asia Wilson was in bouncing back, I really think their guards set the tone early. Chelsea Gray had that ball on a string. Dana Evans' speed, I think, impacted, and you know, her matchup with Kelsey Mitchell. Certainly not like game one, and James Boyd and Alyssa Smith getting one against her former team. She was an issue for the Fever last night. So you got the split. You played with house money last night. You did not win with house money, and now you got a best-of-3 series with home court. And at the start of the series, you certainly would have signed up for that.
Yeah, I believe that was a playoff career high, 18 points from Alyssa Smith, 7 of 9 from the field. So anytime you have the bounce-back game from Asia Wilson as well as the supporting cast, help that she got last night, it's hard to beat that team. That's why they won, 17 of 18 into the year, or 18 of 19 going into this series. So very good team, very good win for them. One that they really needed, I thought, going back to Indiana on Friday for game 3. And also when Kelsey Mitchell isn't making shots at a high rate, it's hard for their offense to get going. Yeah,
it was a struggle last night. There was a brief moment, the reason I bring up that third quarter, Kevin, there was a brief moment when they had a three-pointer by Lexi Hull. They got a steal that ended up being a basket for Kelsey Mitchell, and they kind of went on a little 5-0 run. But Becky Hammond called a timeout, and that was the end of that, and that's as close really as they ever got again. I don't think they got closer than 7 in the second half, did they, James?
Yeah, I'm not sure. All I know is I got the brakes beat off them last night, so anytime you lose by 22, probably weren't many runs in that game.
Yeah, probably kind of expected it, though, after stealing game 1. You figured you'd get the Aces' best shot last night. I mean, that's a really good basketball team. It's really well coached, and they have the best player in the world.
Both series at 1-1. What a finish to game 1, or I should say the first game last night of Lynx and Mercury there. The Lynx blowing a 20-point lead.
Always foul up 3.
Yeah, they did not do that.
So stupid.
They regretted that, and now the Mercury have that series split. So probably not too often. We've said that about WNBA semifinal series of 1-1 splits here, but that's what we've got. Again, best of 5, that's the reminder there, and Friday night, 7:30, game 3. I think Gainbridge Fieldhouse will be rocking.
We're looking forward to it. We'll talk all about that a little bit later on this morning. The Colts, of course, getting back to work later today. Mentioned a moment ago, James Boyd, the first real big road test for them. They're 3-0. They got a win against a team we think is okay with the Denver Broncos. They beat a bad Dolphins team. To use your terms, they beat the brakes off the Dolphins. And they got a road win against a pretty suspect, and I think I'm being kind there, Tennessee Titans team. So now it gets real this week.
Yeah, I was going to say god-awful is probably what you say about the Tennessee Titans.
If you beat the brakes off them, what would be addition to beating the brakes off them?
I don't know.
Beating the muffler off them as well?
I guess. Because
taking the steering wheel, too.
Sure,
KB.
that team was one of the worst teams you'll probably see all year in the Tennessee Titans. They'll probably be in another running for a top 5 pick. And then when you look at the Denver Broncos, I'm not sure that they're good either. I mean, if you look at the combined record of the teams the Colts have beaten, they're 1-8.
Yeah.
And they've been, and those opponents have been outscored by 80 points in those games. And so, yes, I think a stiffer test is coming on Sunday against Los Angeles Rams. And we had the chance to hear from the coordinators yesterday, Kevin, and both coordinators, Lou Anarumo and Jim Bob Cooter, have experience with the Rams and with Matthew Stafford to a degree. So on one hand, Lou Anarumo's like, yeah, I'm still scarred by Matthew's no-look pass in the Super Bowl for a first down to Cooper Kupp. And then on the other hand, Jim Bob Cooper worked for him for about 5 years in Detroit, and he has a lot of respect for him and what he did there as well. Didn't really get the respect that he deserved, I thought, until he got to L.A. and won a Super Bowl.
I cannot recall the last time I have looked forward to a September Colts football game more. Like, I can't wait for
Good
Sunday.
point. Yeah.
I think Sunday is going to be awesome. I think the Rams are a great challenge. I think the Rams are pretty good defensively and don't get enough credit really on that side of the ball. So I think this is a great barometer. I think I think plenty of NFL eyes should be on it. I was a little disappointed that the Fox crew, they didn't get Olsen or the Brady crew for this one. It'll be Kevin Kugler, who I think does a great job on Big Ten Network. I think fans will recognize that voice, and Daryl Johnston. But I was hoping for, kind of one of the more marquee Fox crews. But nonetheless, again, a great, great challenge. And I think the Rams would speak in the same light of the Colts. And, weirdly, the Rams are kind of at, we talked about trap game last week. And, again, I wasn't really a believer in that. You look at the Rams, they just had one of the more emotional, I think, losses of the season, losing on a blocked field goal last week in Philly, a game where I think they led by 3 scores at one point.
Yeah, it was 26-7.
And then you got to travel back across the country. And the Eagles have had their number, for those unfamiliar with kind of the Rams' recent history here. And they have a game on Thursday night within their division against a San Francisco team that's certainly been one of the bright spots amidst all their injuries early in the season. So the Colts game's kind of sandwiched here for the Rams, whereas the Colts, I think, probably circle this a little bit more. The Rams, it's kind of like, okay, where are they going to be at psyche-wise on Sunday? So I'm pumped. Cannot wait for Sunday, and really looking forward to the matchup.
Yeah, the other thing about the Rams, too, remember there was all that talk about the back issue of Matthew Stafford at the beginning of the season, preseason. He has not been on the injury report one time during the regular season, so I don't know what that was all about. If it was a small back issue that a veteran quarterback is like, yeah, I'm just going to chill out until the regular season, but he's apparently been fine, and he's dealing to those receivers.
Yeah, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and honestly, the last of a dying breed because he doesn't run. Doesn't really scramble. Honestly, if he ever scrambled, they probably scream on the sideline like, what are you doing? Just get rid of it. But he is precise, and he can certainly sling it with the best of them because of his arm strength. Still, at his age, I want to say he's 15 years in or 15 years plus in, and he's still, like I said, I think arguably one of the most underrated players of this era.
Kevin, real quickly, kind of tree top it. We were talking about the defense being a little bit better than most people give him credit for. I think all people remember a couple of years ago when Aaron Donald was there, he was just a one-man wrecking crew. And, when they won their Super Bowl several years ago, they'd brought in a lot of free agents, and they really built that thing up and got way over the salary cap. But they had a draft that a couple of years ago that they just hit on all their defensive guys, and those guys are playing really well right now.
Yeah, maybe it's probably not the most, heralded name. If you go back to the Super Bowl, obviously you mentioned Donald, you think of Von Miller, you think of Jalen Ramsey. It's not necessarily that. They are a little banged up at corner, so I'll be curious to see how the Colts can attack that. But, with Jared Verse and Byron Young and Brandon Fisk, I mean, they definitely have some players, particularly in their front, that I think have done some nice things here early in the season. So, again, 405 on Sunday. It's a 3.5-point underdog. Vegas has this over-under right now at 48.5. That's one of the bigger over-unders of any game here in Week 4.
Yeah, tough night for the Reds last night. They have now lost ground for the first time in almost a week. They are game behind the New York Mets. Mets beat are the Cubs ever going to win again in the regular season?
No, I don't think so. I think they've kind of cashed their chips. They're like, just hang out. We're just having fun right now.
They gave up 9 runs to the Mets last night, and the Mets now...
After they were up 6-1.
Yeah. One game ahead of the Reds, who just seem to struggle sometimes against the Pirates. O'Neill Cruz hit a 2-run home run and a 4-run second last night for the Pirates. That's all they needed. In the bottom of the second, I know Elly De La Cruz got a 2-run shot, but nobody scored again. So
the Reds are dead.
Here we go again. If all they got to do is catch the Mets, one game back. They have the tiebreaker.
Have you seen Mark's baseball team try to attempt to hit a ball and get 27 outs lately?
They want nothing to do with it.
What the hell? The only good thing about the Reds in this, potential missing out on the playoffs is if it brings the Cubs with them.
The Cubs are in the playoffs.
Oh,
right,
man.
but if they can continue this in the postseason.
Oh, well, I'm sure they will.
That is some next-level hate right there.
6-1 lead, Mark. That was the only saving grace last night. It's like, yeah, no way. The Reds, another double play. The Reds just hit into. Oh, it's fine. The Cubs will hold on to a 6-1 lead.
Well, Cade Horton, their best pitcher, he was probably going to win NL Rookie of the Year. He left with shoulder tightness yesterday in the third inning, so that's not good. That's not great. He's probably going to be your Game 1 or Game 2 starter in the playoffs. So hopefully that's a short stint, but that's not ideal.
Yeah, I'm checking the phone last night because I was running my youngest around a little bit, and all of a sudden at 6-1, I look up. It was 7-7. All of a sudden, I'm like, what happened here?
The Cubs stink. The Reds might be dead, but the Cubs stink. I'd rather be dead than stink.
All right, we're going to give you all the details on everything.
Sit
Tell you a
around
little
for a
bit
while, you
about
will
the
stink.
college football weekend ahead as well. The check down coming up in a minute. We got Stephen Holder coming your way at 8 o'clock, Zach Austerman at 9, and James Boyd and Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton going to be here all morning long on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Down on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning and welcome into 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. The Las Vegas Aces turned over the King and Ace last night, and they beat the Indiana Fever by a score
was well done.
There we go, right there. 90-68. It was an 11-point deficit for the Fever at halftime. James Boyd got to within 7 at one point in the second half, but really, Fever never really closed in on a big night and a big rebound game for the world's best player, A'ja Wilson.
Yeah, A'ja Wilson, I thought she was typical MVP caliber player last night. And Alyssa Smith, also former Fever player, former Fever draft pick, actually, number 2 in the draft. A few years ago, she had a career high in playoff points, I believe, with 18. And so, tough loss for the Fever, but you did what you were supposed to do. You stole one on the road and still have a chance to come home Friday and take another lead in the series.
Kevin, A'ja Wilson, 25 points, 9 rebounds, and she just looked like the best player in the world last night when you watched that game. Moving easy through the lane, getting her shots, mid-range jumper, unbelievable. She looked like, hey, whatever happened in game one, this is my home court. I'm not letting you have it tonight.
Yeah, and again, I'll go back to the Aces guards. I mean, I know Alyssa Smith, as James points out, she definitely had a great game, but I thought early on, Chelsea Gray had that ball on a string. Some of those passes
10 assists,
she had in the first half was outstanding. And Jewel Lloyd and Jackie Young and even Dana Evans, I mean, all three of them I thought contributed as well to kind of build that early lead for the Aces. So Friday night should be a hell of an environment inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Again, that's a 7:30 tip. They'll come back. We know at least we'll get to Game 4 in this series. That is Sunday, unfortunately, during the Colts game. And then we'll see if it gets to a Game 5 here. Again, best of 5 series, 1-1 right now.
2 bright spots. Lexi Hull did go 5 of 11 from three-point range. I think that set a Fever postseason three-point field goals in one game record. And Odyssey Sims continues to play well, 18.7 assists, and she just competes. I know that there was a tough night for the Fever, but a couple of bright spots there. The Indianapolis Colts getting ready to go on the road themselves. They will take on the Los Angeles Rams Sunday afternoon at 4:05. James Boyd, the Colts are 3.5-point underdogs on the road. That in itself, at least the bettors are giving the Colts a little bit of respect right there.
Yeah, absolutely. They have earned it with the way they've played through the first 3 weeks. You could say you got a little bit lucky there in week 2 against the Broncos, but the other 2 wins were, soundly defeated some bad teams. And so people can say, oh, the competition is kind of weak. But what do you do against weak opponents? You beat them down. And I thought that that's what they've done through 2 games. And as Kevin has pointed out a couple times since the season started, last year, all 8 of their wins were by 1 possession. And then this year, you already have 2 really big, kind of just butt kickings on the resume already.
Wait, is that respect? Aren't they the underdog?
They are, but they're on the road, and usually it's about a 3-point give if you're going on the road.
I honestly
so 3.5.
think had this been a different quarterback or how they had done play, I think that they would
it's their biggest underdog in 8 games.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much necessarily respect that they're getting per se, but again, I can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We will return to work today for the Colts, right, as they start to get ready for this basketball game. We will tell you. Yeah, football game. I was talking about the. It's Wednesday morning. I don't know.
James Boyd, your best Colts starting 5 in basketball would be what? Mo Alley-Cox.
I like that.
Daniel Jones.
Thanks for that,
Daniel
Kevin.
Jones.
Throwing Daniel Jones in there. I heard Daniel Jones can really hoop.
Okay.
So I got Daniel Jones, Molly Cox.
Tyler Warren could scrap a little or no?
I don't know if that's too many bigs.
I feel like you need one more tight end. You going Drew Ogletree?
I'll probably rock with Tyler Warren. I feel like he's just good at everything. One of those types of kids growing up.
Any of the linebackers?
No, I've heard Jalen Jones can play a little bit.
I was going to say, we need one more guard. So
Slasher.
I'm thinking a corner or a wideout.
Yeah, I think Jalen Jones could be somebody.
I would like Kenny Moore hounded my
and then I'm gonna go Tyler Goodson, and this is because growing up he played AAU basketball with Ben Shepherd of the Pacers.
I've got a dark horse, Rigo, because he's hardly punted, so he's been working on his jump shot.
Look at that.
Look
at that.
Thank you for the football basketball
the island
segue
shooter, the Hawaiian out there. Yes.
I'll tell you what, I'm not picking Alec Pierce. He told me of because his younger brother plays at Princeton, or actually he's going to transfer after this year, but he played at Princeton, and his older brother played, I want to say, at North Carolina.
His final year was at North Carolina,
and then played professionally overseas. And Alec told me he has the brokest jump shot of his family.
One other game to note in the AFC South, Tennessee plays at Houston. I know the Texans are looking to get on the board. Both teams are 0-3, and I think that Houston should win that game easily. But, James, if Tennessee somehow pulled off the upset, that's kind of it for the Texans this year, right? You don't start 0-4 and come back to things.
No, you start 0-4, you miss the playoffs. I would actually like to see the stats on that because missing the playoffs is probably it has to be like a 90% clip or higher.
I thought 0-3. Houston did that in 2018. The Colts and them played a wild game here at Lucas Oil, and the Texans did make the playoffs from 0-3. And I think they were like one of the few 0-3 teams ever.
Yeah, 0-4, I think is probably looking at where you're drafting next spring.
Yes.
Jacksonville is 2-1 so far, just a game behind the Colts, but they play on the road also out west against the San Francisco 49ers, who may get Brock Purdy back for that game. We'll wait and see this weekend. College football, Indiana has been made a 7.5-point favorite on the road at Iowa. Notre Dame taking on Arkansas. Another chance to get healthy for the Golden Domers right there.
Boy, it's a great college football slate this weekend. Yeah, Notre Dame a road favorite in the SEC. Indiana, like you said, Jeff, a touchdown favorite in a place that some teams that have been big favorites have gone and lost. But boy, what a great, great slate. You've got Oregon and Penn State, probably the marquee game. Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU. Nothing says SEC more than the headline of the day yesterday was Lane Kiffin's daughter dating the LSU player. There's just nothing more SEC than that.
Did you see him tweet, take the over?
Yes. Outstanding. From Lane Kiffin. Landry Kiffin, I believe, his daughter's name. So best to her and her relationship and Coach Kiffin. I love that headline.
And Mike Gundy out at OSU.
Yeah, after a long time.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
The greatest rant in sports history.
And that rant is like 15 years old, right?
I just heard it was the 18th anniversary earlier this week.
Wow.
That's been there forever.
It is true. Sorry.
What are the greatest
They've
rants?
fallen off a cliff, Oklahoma State.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon
Last couple of years have been
beat
really
the brakes,
tough.
beat the muffler off them earlier this year.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the hood ornament before it's all said and
Stole
done.
the Cadillac converter off of it.
You were talking about great rants. The Tommy Lasorda one to me is still the all-time greatest. What do I think of his performance, Dave Kingman?
Mike, or who am I thinking of? Again, the Cardinals coach when
Denny
Green. I was saying Mike Green. Denny
They are
Green,
who they
yes.
thought they were.
Yeah, that was a great one. You've got the Lee Elia rant.
I mean, certainly Jim
Ripping
Mora
on Cubs fans
in our own backyard.
Picking players, Allen Iverson.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about practice.
That's a great one, too. We should do that later on today. Come up with some of the great rants.
Do a March Madness bracket.
I like it. Major League Baseball, it was a tough night for the Cincinnati Reds all the way around. They started the day occupying the third and final wild card spot. They've now got 5 games remaining after losing to Pittsburgh last night, 4-2. That was tough because the Mets rallied from a 6-1 deficit to beat the Cubs 9-7. So now the Mets are a game in front of the Reds. Now remember, if the Reds end up tied with the Mets, they have the tiebreaker on that. But more bad news for the Reds last night. The Diamondbacks have moved within a game as well of the Reds as they beat the Dodgers last night by a score of 5-4. So it was just a tough night for the Reds all the way around, Kevin.
Not good. Not good at all. Should I continue to play the card of they're dead? Is that good
I got
reverse
people on the
psychology
text
fandom?
line. I got people on the text line saying, "Give us all of that," because
Okay. All right.
I think
I
Matt said you have single-handedly brought them back into it.
Okay. Reverse psychology. The Reds are dead. Go ahead and play some audio, Mark, for us.
No, they're dead. That's all you need. The sad trombone.
All right. The White Sox losing to the Yankees last night by a score of 3-2, and the Cardinals won a wild one against the San Francisco Giants by a score of 9-8. Reds and Pirates get going again tonight at 6:40. I like those early start times. Thank you very much. Can we have more 6:40 starts? Mets and Cubs start at 8 o'clock tonight. Anything else you guys want to throw in right now?
Yeah, definitely the Pacer news from yesterday. Monte Morris signed to a 1-year deal. I think there's been some rumor about, would you sign a veteran guard? I believe Tony East had it as a non-guaranteed deal. It's a guy that's played certainly meaningful minutes for legit teams in his NBA career, 30 years old. I think anytime you are dealing with their guard situation, insurance for potentially a third point guard, I'd assume Nembhard your starter, McConnell your backup, Monte Morris kind of figuring in as that emergency guy. Potentially that could be how it plays out here. So we're starting training camp pretty soon. I mean, we're less than 2 weeks away from the first preseason game, which is just crazy.
I was going to bring up in the next check down, but Graham from Avon said, did you guys see that Thomas Bryant signed with the Cavs?
I did.
Yesterday?
Yes. We'll always have game 6, right, James Boyd?
Absolutely. Had a chance to talk to him after that game. He's very emotional and very excited. This is a guy who's won a championship before, but was just happy to be contributing this time around to helping the Pacers get to the finals for the first time in a very long time.
All right, coming up in just a minute, we'll talk more Colts-Rams. If you missed it the other day during the 8 o'clock hour, Jonathan Taylor joined us to talk about a tremendous day that he and the Colts had, and also we'll find out a little bit about some of the rewards after touchdowns that he gets and what he does with those things as we continue on the Fan Morning Show with James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton across the way. I'm Jeff Rickard. More in a moment on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning and welcome into Hump Day, Mark Dykton, as we are getting ready to go for it's been an exciting week. 3-0 start for the Colts, now a 4-0 start for the Hoosiers. The Fever are in the semifinals, all even with the Las Vegas Aces. Things have gone pretty well, I would say, and it's been a lot of fun. And, of course, huge game, James Boyd, from Jonathan Taylor again. He just keeps racking those things up. How many 100-yard games did you say he had in his career? 24, 25, something like that?
I believe now he's at 26.
26?
So he only trails Edgerrin James for the most in Colts history, and obviously Edge is in the Hall of Fame. So that is a good trajectory for JT, who I believe is 6 years into his career. So when he's healthy, he is one of the best running backs on earth.
I know, Kevin, you're kind of worried, too, about usage with him, the way that Shane Steichen just goes to him and goes to him as goes to him. Do they start to ease up on that, or is this just hey, we need him because he's our best player and this makes us go?
Yeah, definitely don't get the vibe they will ease up at all. And, Sunday's matchup, I think so much of it is rooted in, Matthew Stafford against the Colts, et cetera, et cetera. The Rams did hold Saquon Barkley to an Eagle low in yards per carry. I think it was 2.6 for Saquon on Sunday. That was the lowest he's had since joining Philly. So obviously that is a big storyline coming into Sunday because Taylor has been just outstanding. And again, particularly in second halves, that's when he has really opened it up and hit a couple big home runs. And, oftentimes that's what separates Taylor. It might just be kind of a ho-hum first 2-3 quarters, and then boom, he runs through an arm tackle or two in the third or the fourth quarter, and that makes a difference for his day. So again, we'll probably revolve so much around Stafford and the Kenny Moore injury and all that, and I get that, but don't sleep on either running back. I know one of you, I forget, brought up Kyron Williams earlier in the week. Both Kyron Williams and Jonathan Taylor in this specific matchup against the Rams and the Colts, those are big storylines not to forget about either.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Jonathan Taylor. We did on Monday, the day after the big win over Tennessee on the road, 41-20. And for those who may have missed it in the 8 o'clock hour, for our 7 o'clockers, here's a little bit of that conversation.
Jonathan, that second run, the cut, the spin, running through the arm tackles, where does that one rank in your favorite NFL runs?
It's definitely up there, especially with it being a divisional opponent. Those games are they just mean a little bit more because we know to achieve our ultimate goal, it starts in the division. So it definitely ranks in the top tier.
It was a little throwback to your Wisconsin days with number 84 lining up at fullback, leading you into that hole.
Definitely. It's been a while since I had a fullback, lined up in front of me. So it definitely went back to the old days.
JT, I've heard this for years from you. You were talking about when Zach Moss was your teammate, you'd always say his spin move. Can we now see you have a spin move as well? Because that was pretty sweet.
I think I definitely, put enough work in to try and add that to the repertoire. So I think it's now officially in the repertoire now.
Gotcha. And so we know that this was a complete and total win, but looking at where it starts with your quarterback, what have you seen from Daniel Jones for the first 3 weeks of the season and the exceptional play that he's provided at that position for you all?
I think for Daniel, just how he was able to come in and grasp the system so quickly, but then apply it at a high level. There are a lot of smart quarterbacks in the league. They can go to different places, learn the system, but it's just something about executing a system that you have not been in for a while at a high level. And I think that's something that Daniel has been able to do, which has been awesome. A Duke guy. So, of course, we know he's smart, but then you see him on the field and his athleticism takes over, his decision-making takes over, and you can see it just continues to move the ball down the field.
Jonathan, one more on the Daniel Jones front from me. Can you kind of speak and maybe take us behind the scenes a little bit on what you've seen kind of work ethic-wise from him?
Daniel was always in the playbook. He's always thinking about his checks. You'll go in the building in the morning, and, it'll be something that's up for today at the day at practice. Said, hey, JT, when we run this scheme, I'm thinking about this check. So just be ready for it. If you hear it, don't get caught by surprise. And, you're just walking in the building, didn't even grab your breakfast yet, but he's already thinking about practice. So for him, he's just so dialed into the details that whenever we get a look or whatever the situation is on Sunday, we've already gone over it. We already know the plan of execution. Then it's just about going and executing it.
So, JT, you mean to tell me in the middle of you grabbing your bacon, you have Daniel Jones saying,
trying to get the bacon.
Yeah, but
Daniel Jones trying to get the bacon.
Yeah,
right?
but by the way, make sure you get this block right or whatever. Is that how it kind of goes?
Definitely, and it could be any scheme. It's just, or there could be a call up that they just installed, with the quarterbacks or with the O-line that they were just discussing, and he wants to make sure the running back room gets it before we head out to practice. So I'm telling coach, I'm telling the other backs, hey, listen, if you guys hear this is what it means. So those guys are always constantly working to put us in the best position for success.
Jonathan Taylor joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline this morning after the Colts' 41-20 victory at Tennessee yesterday. Obviously, 3-0 speaks for itself. The scores speak for themselves, but it feels different. It looks different from the past year or two. You're in that locker room. You've seen the evolution. What is different?
I think it's the guys banding together and understanding that the preparation each and every single day leading up into Sunday is what's going to propel us to the win on Sunday. But ultimately, when Sunday comes, it's about the execution. You could practice all day long. You can go over things each and every single day, rep after rep. But when Sunday comes, if you can't apply what you've done in practice on the field and prove yourself each and every single week, it really doesn't mean anything. Perseverance means nothing if you're headed in the wrong direction. So for us, it's all about persevering in the right direction and understanding we got to put a good product on the field each and every single Sunday.
He's got the most rushing yards ever for a Colt through 3 games to start a season. He is Jonathan Taylor. He's with us here, and of course there are quite a few pretty good running backs that have put on a Colts uniform. JT with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Jonathan, something that Zaire Franklin said after the game yesterday, and I know there are many times during practice, particularly when the full pads come on in camp, where it is a little running back versus linebacker drill. He feels like you've made some big strides in the pass protection element. Would you agree with that, and was that a focus coming into this season?
Definitely. You always want to continue to elevate your game each and every single year, even things that you're already good at. That's how you stay sharp in those things. So understanding there's got to be a way to get better every single year. If you think you've arrived, you've already lost. So finding ways for me to continue to elevate my game is something that I've always done, especially in the off season. You look at what you've done well, what you didn't do well that season, and then you have a game plan to attack for the past off season.
JT, when you look at your career, I know you don't have time to look back often, especially when you're in the moment, but how much does it mean to you to be this far into your career and still putting up these sort of performances and at a position where people question, is the running back still as valuable as it was 20 years ago, to still be sustaining this level of play? How much does that mean to you, just knowing the pride you have at playing running back?
It means a lot. That's something ever since, high school, then going into college. One of my MOs have just been being on the field and being a reliable player, one that the coaches, one that my teammates can trust and lean on. And that comes with being available, and that comes with being consistent every time you're out there, every time your number is called. Now it's kind of shifted and transitioned towards, you have to help the next generation. So I feel like the guys who came before me has done a great job, and then it was time for my generation to come in and try to continue to carry that torch, and then continue to do that so that the younger generation can take it to an even higher level.
Jonathan, last one for me. Appreciate the time early on this Monday morning. If my math is right, you had 55 touchdowns at Wisconsin. I believe yesterday the 3 scores add up to 61 now in your NFL career. So that's more than 100 touchdown balls. Do you keep all of the touchdown balls? Do you divvy them out? What do you do? I'm just picturing you with a giant tub in your basement filled with touchdown balls.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. You always want to keep those things. Those are memories. You look back, right now while you're in the thick of it, you think, man, I'm going out there, I'm trying to produce for my team every week, but you know that later down the line when it's all said and done, those are going to be sentimental to you. They're sentimental now, but looking back, they'll be sentimental. So being able to hold on to those, and then you never know. Eventually, you'll pick certain ones out. You want to get them framed up, placed somewhere in your home, just so that one day, you're walking past and you can have that memory of that week at practice, how hard it was, but then it all paid off that week on Sunday. So you definitely have a lot of those touchdown balls and hopefully a lot more coming.
If we showed up to your basement, are we allowed to throw the balls around, or is that a big no-no?
No, you can't mix the balls up.
Okay.
You got each and every single year, so you don't want to mix, a 2022 or 2021, or you don't want to mix them up.
Sure.
You got to keep them in the order.
Makes total sense.
Beautiful. Jonathan Taylor, Payless Liquors Hotline earlier this week. He might have another tub of balls or two before it's all said and done because he's just going to keep scoring touchdowns and touchdowns and touchdowns. And I know when I said that phrase, you immediately locked eyes with Mark Dykman. Like, did you get that? Did you get that? But no, I love the fact that he's going to have a whole wing in his house for touchdown footballs.
Heard a faint laugh in the corner of the studio. Was curious what Mark Dykman might be laughing at. Maybe it's the Cubs pitching lately.
Boy, for someone who's off the Reds bandwagon, you're taking some shots this morning.
Again, Jonathan Taylor, it's a career on the way to Canton, Ohio. There's no doubt about it, and I think it's a career that will age well, given running backs, and that, right now quarterbacks, it's tough to sometimes, Matthew Stafford, for example, you start to compare his stats, it's like, well, is he Hall of Famer? I think he is, but, it might look a little bit similar to other quarterbacks. I think Jonathan Taylor, as you continue to move forward, it will age like a fine wine.
Well, just as a team, and mostly it's been Jonathan Taylor. James Boyd, the Colts are third right now in the league in total yards rushing, behind only the Bills and Commanders, and it really has been kind of a one-man gang for the Colts.
Yeah, shout out to Nate Atkins. I have to find this because he tweeted something out yesterday, and I'll see the former Colts beat writer now with the Rams on the Rams beat later this week, but he tweeted out yesterday that, here it is, JT through 3 games has more rushing yards than the following teams: Cardinals, Chiefs, Saints, Patriots, Packers, Seahawks, Giants, Texans, Chargers, Panthers, 49ers, Dolphins, Titans, Browns, Raiders, Steelers, Bengals.
Damn, that's like half the NFL.
I know, man.
That is unbelievable. Yeah, so I just couldn't believe that stat and how ridiculous that is, honestly, and it lets you know how talented he is. And then I think going back to what Kevin asked him on Monday when it comes to the pass blocking. And I'm actually sitting here right now as we're listening to the interview. I'm going back through some of the film. They didn't send a lot of blitzes when he was on the field against the Titans. But if you go back and look at the tape against Denver, man, he was balling from that aspect. I mean, block after block. I went back and saw some big catches. That 3rd and 7 that they had to get across midfield and eventually set up the game-winning field goal for Spencer Schrader. On that play, you have JT picking up a nice block there right in the middle of the field to give Daniel Jones just enough time to get rid of the ball. So hats off to him. I think it is impressive when you see a guy be 6 years in and still getting better. You hear that from players. But honestly, 6 years in, usually you plateau. Whoever you've been is kind of who you are. But I think JT, this version of him we're seeing, is the best version we've seen so far. And that is, I get it. It's only 3 games. But this 3-game stretch, best I've seen. That's for a guy who was first-team All-Pro in 2021.
You also talk about some team stats as I was looking this up last night. In terms of total touchdowns right now, teams at the top you would expect, right? Ravens have scored 14 touchdowns. The Lions have scored 13. 12 of them, I think, came against the Bears, didn't they, Mark? Something like that. 12
tub of balls over here.
12. Yeah, you'll never hear that one back, though.
That was very well done, Jeff.
12 touchdowns for the Bills. The Colts are 4th in the NFL right now in total touchdowns. And I know they've had defensive touchdowns as well, but they just score right now. And we've talked about all the field goals that Spencer Schrader's been able to kick. And being 4th in total touchdowns in the NFL for the Colts, it's only 3 games. I get it. But they're moving the ball up and down the field, Kevin. There's just no question about it.
And greedy Shane Steichen would say we should have more, given the red zone success. And that's the thing about the Colts offense right now.
That's so crazy.
You could sit here and say, wow, they're not going to continue to move it at that historic rate. But yet, if you're right now in the red zone, I want to say they're 26th in the NFL. If you could just get to average, maybe you don't move up and down the field as religiously as you are. Maybe Rigoberto Sanchez is actually used to punt an extra time or two. But if you can take a couple of those red zone drives that are ending in Spencer Schrader kicking from 34 yards and turn that into 7 instead of 3, the score might still be the same for you. So that's where I think right now it's like, okay, is this real? Is this a fluke? What can sustain? As James Boyd accurately pointed out earlier in the show, the competition is certainly going to increase, and you're not going to play as joke of a teams as you've played so far, but you're beating the you-know-what out of them, and that does not happen. Again, the Colts right now, through 3 games, have won 2 games by at least 20 points. They hadn't done that since the 2021 season. I mean, you got to go back 3 full years plus to find a time that they've done that, and they've done it twice here in the first 3 weeks.
It's the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton, and I'm Jeff Rickard. Trevor from North Carolina texts in on the fan text line at 239-1070. We were asking about 0-4 teams, James. The 1992 Chargers, he went and looked this up, are the only team that he can find online that started the season 0-4 and still made the playoffs. They won 11 straight games after going 0-4, finished 11-5, and did make the playoffs. So it's possible, but not likely.
Yeah, that Texans team that I'm watching right now, they're not winning 11 games in a row. So you got to start stacking some wins up. And I think what I'm seeing, I know people have questions about C.J. Stroud. I think one of the bigger issues is just, he has nobody protecting him right now. And it's hard to play quarterback in this league. I'm not saying anything that's, not obvious, but when you're at pressure in your face constantly, it's hard to play good football.
Well, the Texans got their own troubles this week. They just need to take care of business against Tennessee Titans, get themselves on the board. But if the Colts just keep winning games, it's not going to matter what anybody else does, obviously. And so we'll see what happens Sunday afternoon in Los Angeles, 4:05. And James Boyd, you will be there, correct?
Yeah, that's part of the job. So I'll be hopping on a flight Saturday afternoon.
All right, for just joining us and waking up this morning and maybe didn't stay up last night. It was a rough night for the Indiana Fever. They lose last night, 90-68 on the road in Las Vegas. And Asia Wilson, the best player in the world, came to play last night along with a couple of her teammates, but she was dominant, 25 points, 9 rebounds.
Yeah, she was great. Honestly, I think what bothered me the most, though, was the Aces others really, really stepping up for them. And, again, they're a very talented team around her, but Nalissa Smith can't be doing that against her former team if the Fever are going to make this a legit series. She was really good. And again, they're guards, which, they are a decorated guard group.
They got a bunch of Olympians and Hall of Famers.
But for those that haven't been following along.
Jewel Lloyd's coming off the bench.
Right.
Yeah.
And she came off the bench and right away, boom, hits a 3 right in front of her coach. And I thought Chelsea Gray just had full control of what they were doing offensively and threw some passes that, honestly, little Caitlin Clark-esque with some of the boldness with their passes, and it worked.
10 assists.
She was really, really good. So 1-1 now. You got the split, and boy, you got to feel like the winner came 3 wins the series, right? It is just best of 3 at this point, and the Fever have home court, but it almost feels like that much is at stake come Friday night.
I'm curious because we got to the game a little bit late on ESPN last night because there was an overtime game in the other playoff matchup between Phoenix and Minnesota. But that was a really compelling game. Phoenix got a late 3 to send it to overtime. Then they got off to a quick start in overtime. And I know it was late getting to the Fever, and the Fever were already kind of behind at that point in time. But I like watching games that go into overtime, James. I don't know about you.
I was ready to watch the Fever. I was hoping that they would put it on a different channel, but that game was crazy.
ESPN 2, right?
I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
Oh wow!
ESPN 2,
I missed that. So I finished out the Mercury game, and I just think it's dumb when you're up 3, less than 20 seconds to go, and you're not fouling. There's so many more variables that have to not go your way for you to lose if you do foul. And you're up 3 and all they get is 2 free throws versus if you give them 1 shot to tie the game. And so I thought the Lynx deserved that loss because that was stupid basketball. Yeah. And stupid basketball shouldn't get rewarded.
I like the fact that the city continues to embrace quality. And, I was out taking my lunch walk yesterday around downtown Indianapolis, and I counted 3 different guys where one was wearing a Fever hat, one was wearing a Caitlin Clark T-shirt, and the other one had a T-shirt on covered by a Caitlin Clark jersey. This city has just really embraced this WNBA team and has fallen in love with it. You see the energy at the home games, even after Caitlin Clark missed so much time this year. It's just a lot of fun to see the enthusiasm continuing here. I dig it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything changed when Caitlin got drafted. I certainly don't want to dismiss that, but yeah, to your point, Jeff. People have stuck around, even though she's been injured and won't play again this year. And I think it's really cool from just a personal standpoint for those who really were Fever fans prior to all of the Caitlin Clark fandom arriving here, which was a good thing for the city, don't get me wrong. But Kelsey's been through so much with this franchise. She's been open about that. More open, I think, recently than ever before because of the success she's had now. And, it's fun to see that sort of perseverance pay off, especially in like this type of city, this type of town. We pride ourselves on being the blue-collar sort of nature, and she's certainly that. And then getting back to the series itself, best thing about the playoffs, and it's so cliche, but it is also very true, you can get blown out and it's still 1-1. So, I mean, you flush it, you get back to it. And also, shout out to Lexi Hull as well. I know she was questionable with the back injury. Came out, toughed it out, as I probably knew she would, and not nailed 5 threes, which Jeff pointed out earlier, ties a franchise playoff record. She actually tied Katie Douglas and a few others. Shout out to Katie Douglas, another Indiana basketball legend.
She had a big collision last night. I can't remember who it was with, but there was one point. I think Becky Hammond ended up getting a technical foul because she thought Lexi had done something, but it looked to me like two people just ran into each other.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe with that game. Kevin, watching that game back, it was horrible as far as the officiating, the physicality.
Both coaches were bitching after the game about it.
I mean, and I can't blame them. It was horrible.
Yeah, I thought, frankly, I think that's kind of par for the course with how the W usually goes.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe. It's not like I don't think it's a fever thing or when Caitlin was playing, it's a Caitlin thing. I truly believe the WNBA is just too physical because, like, what we saw last night, we would never see that in the NBA. You're not hitting LeBron and Steph Curry like this on a nightly basis.
Yeah. So the Fever come back home. They got the split, tied up at 1. The Colts get ready to go to Los Angeles to see if they can keep this win streak going. We'll talk about it all in a minute. Stephen Holder stops by as we continue on the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Wednesday, kind of the day we're going to catch our breath. Obviously, we had the Colts all day Sunday. We had the Hoosiers and Notre Dame and Purdue playing on Saturday, and then the Colts on Sunday. Then we had Monday Night Football, WNBA playoffs all going on, and today we can all kind of catch our breath. Nothing going on tonight unless you're a Reds fan. But we get back to Colts. They'll get back.
Still, nothing going on.
We get the Cubs. But the Colts coming up on Sunday afternoon again, and there in Los Angeles will be James Boyd and also our next guest, Stephen Holder from ESPN, who joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline this morning. I know it's back to work for you during the day today, but do you take a little bit of a deep breath Tuesday and Wednesday, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, I caught the fever last night, but I'm sure there'll be some kind of MAC football game on tonight or something. I don't know. I'm sure there's something if you're really looking for it. But I might just go to bed early because I think I need some rest.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we've all been watching sports, and it's fun, and at some point you just got to take a quick break. But no breaks for Shane Steichen and the Colts. They're back to work, as I mentioned earlier today. What about this team at 3-0? Do you believe in them yet? Should people start truly believing that this could be one of the best teams in the NFL?
They have passed the test so far. I think the real buy-in comes after this weekend. I think this is their biggest test yet. There are some questions that they have to answer, and this is not being negative. This is just reality, right? I mean, there are some 1-2 and 0-3 teams out there that are obviously better than their record, and so the question then becomes, are the Colts what they have shown so far at 3-0? Look, two of their opponents, let's be honest, the Dolphins and Titans probably not going anywhere fast this year. So the big test, I think, comes Sunday, both for Daniel Jones and for the defense, which, has, I think, kind of been living a little dangerously if you look at that Broncos game.
Steven, when I look at some of the numbers from Daniel Jones, and actually I got a message from one of my coworkers at The Athletic yesterday, like, hey, we're doing some sort of early season, not like a poll, but it was kind of like, hey, can you give us a quote about Daniel Jones and why he has a case for MVP so far through 3 games? And I'm like, wait, what? And then you look at the numbers, and it backs everything up. He's I'm looking at his numbers right now. He's 3rd in passing yards, 4th in completion percentage, 3rd in passer rating, and 1st in EPA per play. So when I say all of that, what is your reaction to having a quarterback in Indianapolis, not named Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck, playing at that level?
I mean, I think I should buy a lottery ticket for one, because for this to work out the way it has, I don't even think Shane Steichen, in a moment of complete honesty, would tell us that he thought it would be going this well. But I think where it's interesting for me is you and I have had this conversation, and KB, like, we all agreed, like, okay, there's a possibility of this working, like, before the season. There's a possibility of this working, but the scenario, the way I saw it, this is what I've told people. The way I saw this working, if this had a productive outcome, was Daniel Jones plays well, but it's really about everybody around him. Okay? The receivers play out of their minds. Jonathan Taylor out of his mind. Offensive line, great. Defense, spectacular. I thought he would be the guy who just kind of help bring it together and didn't screw it up. Instead, what we have is a little bit of the opposite. We have everybody else playing pretty well, and then Daniel Jones is just off the charts. So I don't understand this at all, and it's not what I expected. And anybody who says they expected this, they are a freaking liar. I don't believe them.
Yeah, I'd honestly lie detector Mr. and Mrs. Jones, frankly, for that. Steven, the best aspect to Daniel Jones through 3 weeks, if you had to pinpoint it on one thing, what would it be?
His accuracy is really impressive. I got to say, like, I didn't watch all of his games the past 6 seasons, right? So none of us were experts on Daniel Jones. So let me preface it by saying that. But he has thrown with such accuracy on the contested throws. I mean, the tight window throws, that is just impressive to me. So that's the main thing. I think the other thing that he's been most impressive with is just his ability to stand in the pocket calmly. as I've said this repeatedly, when he was under duress in New York, the play was over. Okay, he just really didn't react well to pressure, and he was under a lot of pressure because his offensive line was very bad. Now, there has been pressure at times here, but he's just handled it differently, and I think it's because, again, he is so confident, and he's not playing scared because he trusts his protection, and he trusts his coach, he trusts everything around him, that he's just playing with a different level of comfort, and he's just a different guy, frankly.
You want me to throw this stat at you, Stephen Holder? Because I found this yesterday. I really couldn't believe it just reading it back. So Daniel Jones against the blitz this season, he's 27-43 through the air for a league-high 415 yards and a touchdown. Like, that is not the Daniel Jones we remember from New York. I mean, the recipe to rattle him
he was awful.
Was to blitz him.
Yeah.
For me, it's the no negative plays, which I think the blitz stat kind of plays into that, James. Steven, it's like, Daniel Jones has had some moments in his career, but the negatives have always been there. It's almost like one step forward, two steps back.
He turned it over almost at a 1-to-1 ratio
right, turnover,
in New York.
sacks, however you want to label the negative plays. I think if I had to pinpoint one thing, that would be it. 0 turnovers and 2 sacks through 3 games. I mean, that's absurd for any NFL quarterback, no matter what the schedule looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I just think overall, I don't think anyone, like I said, no one could have predicted this, but I think when you just look at how clean he's played and just how, not only that, you make a good point, how clean he's played, but also the fact that, like, they're not hiding him. Like, they're coming out in games and they're like, pass. Oh, let's run the ball a couple times. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, they're putting the game on him. I mean, that's the part that is just equally stunning about all of this. Like, they're not saying, all right, let's see, how can we not screw this up? No. They're like, we are going to go and we're going to throw the ball whenever and against whoever we want to. And Daniel Jones is the quarterback. No, that's never been said before. That's amazing to me.
Stephen Holder joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Obviously, a lot of the credit for this offensive success goes to the offensive line and what they've been able to do. But my favorite play, Stephen, for Tyler Warren so far, I had that first big week this past in week 1. But this past week, on that 46-yard touchdown run that Jonathan Taylor was a beast on, it doesn't happen unless Tyler Warren makes a big block just about 2 or 3 yards downfield, kind of on the edge there. How's he doing as a rookie tight end on the line?
Actually, the blocking has been pretty impressive. He's been in some situations where he's been matched up with some pretty good pass rushers or just good defensive players generally, and he is doing the job. That's the one area of his game that if you had a question and you could maybe say the jury is out, that was it. I'm talking coming into the season because, we just didn't know. But he's actually handled himself very well, and I think that power play, that ISO play that Jonathan Taylor scored on, I mean, maybe you guys have mentioned this earlier in the week, but Shane Steichen told us about that, sort of in confidence on Friday, and it was so interesting. Like, he was pumped up for it in large part because Tyler Warren was going to be the one lead blocking. Think about that. This guy who is getting all these accolades for being just a great receiver and the plays that he's making in the passing game. The thing that Shane Steichen was really excited about was like, oh, we're going to go get him on a linebacker and he's going to make this play for us. And he did. He absolutely did.
Stephen, we were debating this earlier this week, whether or not the Colts should try Anthony Richardson in the red zone, mainly because of all the offensive success the Colts have had. They are 26th, I believe, in red zone success rate, which in English means how many times they get to the red zone and score a touchdown. So 26th in the league. Would you put Anthony Richardson in there to try to be more efficient in that area?
It's tempting, that's for sure. I still think it's unlikely. Now, that's not the question, though. You're asking, would I? I think it depends. If we're talking about running like read option down there, I'd do it. I think if you're talking about, giving him a situation where he's throwing the ball, I think Daniel Jones is a better option right now. I mean, just to be completely frank. But but I think if you want to consider the read option down there, that gives them some options. They are definitely problematic. Their offense has been problematic in the red zone, and I think when you talk about the good competition you're going to have to play, I mean, if you want to win the division and you want to get in the playoffs and win, well, you got to beat quality football teams. So the success rate that they're having in the red zone right now is not going to cut it. That is not going to cut it. Look, again, the bar has been raised, so we're not talking about them like, oh, maybe they can make a wild card this year. No, we're talking about them in terms of like, all right, let's go win the division. That is basically where this is now, right? So if that's what we're talking about, then we got to talk about them in such a way, and we got to raise that bar. So they have to be better in the red zone, and maybe they do need to consider that. That read option that he can give them down there, Anthony Richardson, is pretty unstoppable. So especially with Jonathan Taylor involved. So I'm interested to see if they would do it.
One more for you, Stephen Holder. And again, Stephen Holder covers the Colts for ESPN, joining us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Stephen, it sounds like Kenny Moore will not be available this upcoming Sunday in LA. It sounds like Alec Pierce might not be available either. He's in a concussion protocol. With both of those, potential absences, what do you think will be the bigger loss for this team? And also, what do you think Mike Hilton in particular at that cornerback spot could potentially bring to this franchise?
Yeah, it's not great timing. No question about that. Those are two big injuries, I think. And Alec Pierce, he was on his way to being the leading receiver in that game, by the way, on Sunday before he got hurt. So, and it was very, I think, heartening to see him being used in a variety of ways, which maybe he hasn't gotten enough opportunities to do. But anyhow, the one that hurts the most, I think maybe Kenny Moore, frankly, just because you have Sean McVay on the other side, and if there's anybody who's good at creating favorable matchups, I mean, it's that guy. So I think that's a tough thing for the Colts to have to deal with on the fly, particularly if it's Mike Hilton. Is he ready to roll? Is he going to be up to speed on all the verbiage and all that? Probably, but I think there's at least some questions there. Is he in shape? All those things, right? That one for me is concerning, just because I think A.D. Mitchell, who would have to sub for Alec Pierce, he's started off okay, and no one's been harder on A.D. than I have, because I think his in-game performance just has fallen so flat compared to his practice performance. But I think the job he's done early on, I think I give him an opportunity. I think he has it in him. He's showing that he's up to the task so far.
Stephen, last one from me. I feel like so much of Sunday, and I do want to acknowledge there are a lot of factors to Sunday. First off, I think it's a great challenge on both sides. I mean, I think the Rams would say the same thing about the Colts, given Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones. And again, we talk so much about Matthew Stafford. Kyron Williams is a damn good running back as well. So much of it boils down to, can the Colts get pressure with 4? Like, I just, especially the Kenny Moore injury, I just sit there and think, can you disrupt Matthew Stafford's timing? And he gets the ball out very quick. What do you look at as the biggest key for Sunday?
I think really it's that. I think they're going to be able to make some plays offensively. They have a lot of talent on that side of the ball, and their efficiency with run and pass right now, I think the likelihood that the Rams can shut down both aspects, I think is probably unlikely. So for me, the big question is, what is the defense going to do? I didn't think we'd be sitting here having more questions about the defense than the offense, but here we are. And I'm not saying this is a bad defense. It's not. But that pass rush, look, I think you have to not discount or ignore, but you definitely have to not put as much emphasis on weeks 1 and 3. Week 2 against Denver, that's the one that bugs me, because they could not get home. They just could not. Bo Nix had all day, and that was the best offensive line they have played, really the only good offensive line they have played. And so they're going to face another one on Sunday, and they're going to face a quarterback who is not going to be phased. You can't blitz this guy and phase him. You can collapse the pocket. You're not going to phase him. He's tough. Like, this is going to be the test. And so far, that defensive line, I think the jury is still out. And they have too much money invested and too many draft picks invested in that defensive line. They got to produce, period.
Stephen Holder, you put a period on that conversation. We appreciate you stopping by. Thanks as always. Enjoy whatever the evening brings you, and we will see you soon.
All right. See you guys.
There you go. Everything
Sounds
that
like-
is said,
sounds like
Mark is like, oh.
Yeah, it sounds like we about to, matter of fact,
Man.
Mark, cut the lights down a little bit.
Yeah. Set the mood.
We had started by talking about what he might be watching for sports on TV tonight. There you go, Mark.
And I was trying to transition to something else, but boy, it's hard to follow that.
I don't know.
What did you want to transition to?
Steven own a velvet robe? I feel like he does.
He's cool enough. Best dressed guy on the beat.
Hello, welcome to
And
the
that's
Holder
not saying
residence.
much, James Boyd, but I don't want that to sound as a backhanded compliment
Nah,
to
that
Stephen
man is
Holder.
clean.
Yeah, he's in a different stratosphere.
He can
when
dress.
It comes
I'll
to,
give him that.
Dress. That last comment by Stephen. You've invested too much into your D-line not to have more of a disruptive pass rush. So for me, again,
I agree. You have a second-round pick that's not playing.
Right. You can point and a lot of money. He mentions
That
the
too,
money
yes.
aspect to it. I mean, you look at how much Kwity Paye's making, how much Samson Ebicom's making, how much Grover, Buckner, the list goes on and on, not just the draft picks.
And honestly, to me, it's
Draft
not
picks
the D
can't tell.
tackles. I think Grover and DeForest Buckner have done what they're
it's the
supposed to
end
do.
play,
It's
yeah.
the end play, yeah.
But that element to Sunday, to me, is just vital. Again, you're going to have to
Absolutely.
probably commit more to coverage given your injury situation. And Matthew Stafford, I think it's the third fastest of any quarterback in the league. He gets the ball out. How do you disrupt that timing? Again, that's rush and cover. I thought, honestly, some of the 4 sacks, and I got the impression yesterday, James, that Lou Anarumo's not maybe as worried about the pass rush as some others. He was pretty quick to point out the 4 sacks against Cam Ward, and I get it. 4 sacks in a vacuum looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think some of that is A, rookie quarterback. B, I thought your coverage contributed to some of it. And I just think pass rushing Cam Ward and pass rushing Matthew Stafford are 2 totally different animals. Yes, Stafford's more of a stationary guy, but at the same time, his identification, his ability to get the ball out quick, and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, those are all different animals.
I'm glad you bring that up because at just about every offensive skill position, they're going to be playing the best players they've played to date this season. Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback that they have played so far. I would say Kyron Williams is the best running back they will have played so far. And without question, the top 2 wide receivers they will have played so far are Nacua and Devontae Adams. They got a lot to handle defensively this week.
Yeah, we were James, I don't know if you were in on this. You are a little bit more paying attention than I am, but we were bored at practice the other day, and we somehow had the conversation of what are some of the greater individual performances you've seen from a Colts player in person and or a player against the Colts in your time covering the team. Colts individually, I always go back to Reggie Wayne with the Orange Gloves, 2012. Everything that went into that game, Bruce Arians' first game as head coach, Chuck Pagano, game ball delivered to him, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the better individual performances I've seen from an opponent was Puka Nacua 2 years ago inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. And that was still early Puka. And Cooper Kupp was not playing in that game. And for Puka Nacua to take over that game, again, there was still the, who's this, what was he, a 4th rounder, 5th rounder? I mean, it's not like this was, Marvin Harrison Jr. walking into the NFL here. And for him to have had that performance, I forget the exact numbers, but they were eye-popping. He had the game winner in overtime there. And now you throw Adams, who doesn't look like he's walking up the 18th hole just yet. Looks like there's still a little bit left there. That's quite the do. It's probably the toughest passing game matchup the Colts will face all year.
Yeah, so here's the stats for you. 9 catches, $163 and a touchdown, and the touchdown was a walk-off. So.
Hibachi.
It certainly was. That was his 3rd 100-yard receiving game in his first 4 career games. And the guy has not slowed down a bit since then.
Probably did Kenny Moore play in that game? And now you're saying no Kenny Moore. And if I remember correctly, Nacua did a lot of that out of the slot. So,
yeah,
again,
big-time player.
That's just what adds to it. And he's had a great start here to this season.
It'll be the Rams and the Colts coming up on Sunday afternoon. We'll be talking about it all week long.
Puka.
And
how about that name? Puka Dykton. You ever think about that, Mark?
It just missed the top 5.
Did it?
Yeah.
It sounds like a universal sex name, too. I could go boy or girl.
Yeah.
We were
thinking about it.
Well, you could do that coming up.
Puka Bowen.
How's that conversation
he or
going
she
to play
better
out
make
with
it to
Maddie?
the NFL.
Well, I don't know. I think Maddie's pretty open to any and all names. So, okay, Puka. All right. Let me jot that down.
Mondo Bowen.
Puka Mondo Bowen.
That kid's going to get bullied for a long
what a
time.
great-
Please
Or
don't
be
do
the
that.
toughest kid in school.
Maybe would be the best rugby player the state's.
Right.
Aren't they taking over Kuntz Stadium? Shout out to Bryce Campbell. Isn't he
Yeah.
investing all this into rugby here. I love it. Puka Mondo Bowen.
Getting back to your point about the game, Kevin, in that game, Kenny Moore, interception. So without that, big factor.
Yeah. It's
2 pass breakups and an interception in that game for him.
And Puka still did all that. So, yeah, big loss.
Mark, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, the Indiana Fever are now even in their best-of-5 playoff series in the semifinals of the WNBA postseason, losing at Las Vegas last night, 90-68. Asia Wilson looked like the best player in the world, 25 points, 9 rebounds. Former Fever player Nalissa Smith came up big against her old team, 18 points, 7 boards. And Chelsea Gray, as you pointed out a couple of times this morning, James Boyd, was playmaking. She had 10 assists last night. Every time I turn around, she was throwing dimes.
Yeah, shout out to a couple other Indiana-adjacent people. Dana Evans from Gary, Indiana, played at Westside, had 10 points off the bench.
She can scoot.
Yeah, she's very quick. Has to be at her size. Jewel Lloyd from a Notre Dame player, big game for her off the bench as well, 10 points. And then Jackie Young in the starting lineup. She is, I believe, the all-time leading scorer for Indiana high school basketball, boys or girls. Had a big game as well.
Odyssey Sims leading the way for the Fever, 18 points, 7 assists for her. Lexi Hall had 15 points, all of them on three-point field goals. She was 5 of 11 from three-point range, but 5 of 16 overall. And Game 3 comes your way, Kevin Bowen, tomorrow night at the Fieldhouse.
Friday.
What is today? Wednesday?
Yeah.
I gotta say,
this day is killing me today.
Odyssey Sims is giving me Lance Stevenson vibes. And that can be a great thing, and that can be a bad thing.
She's been really good so far.
I tell you what, my heart can't be beaten like that at 10:07 at night. Not on a Tuesday. I'm watching her play, and I get nervous.
I said this about Ariel Powers, the exact same thing about Lance Stevenson. I think Ariel has a little bit more of that energy in her. Especially
I
seeing
can
her
see
at
that,
home.
but she doesn't handle it as much as Odyssey has the ball so much.
I like this. Okay, that's a better comp. Yeah,
man, this ain't.
But you got to ride the waves, though, and I think that's what
been good.
You kind of have to embrace with this team at this point. You're like the level of consistency you're gonna get.
Oh, I get you have no other choice.
Yeah, like you're not gonna get the level of consistency you would have if Caitlin Clark was in there. You kind of got to ride these waves and give them that confidence, and that's one of the things that makes the Fever so good. Is usually they're able to find the others who are able to step up in that group alongside Kelsey and AB.
All right, so Friday night, 7:30. The airtime be 7:15 with Eddie Garrison's fan pregame show. Again, coming your way, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. Major League Baseball last night. Cincinnati Reds had a tough one. They lose 4-2 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're a game behind the New York Mets for that third and final wild card spot in the National League as the Mets beat the Cubs last night 9-7. How long is that losing streak now for the Cubs?
5 games. They haven't won since they've clinched the playoffs.
All right, a little bit of a hangover there, but hopefully they'll get it together again. St. Louis Cardinals beat the Giants last night by a score of 9-8. How about this, guys? Detroit Tigers were defeated by the Cleveland Guardians 5-2 straight up last night. Guardians have now caught the Tigers in the American League Central. Kevin, they were 12.5 games behind. The Guardians were 12.5 games behind the Tigers just a little over a month ago.
Gosh, that is an epic collapse.
Man,
epic.
Oh man.
Also, hug your Guardian fans out there.
Seattle Mariners clinched a playoff spot last night in the American League. They beat the Rockies 4-3. They have a 4-game lead with 5 to play over the Houston Astros there in the American League. Coming up this weekend, college football. Indiana has been made a 7.5-point favorite at Iowa. Notre Dame will be on the road against SEC's Arkansas Razorbacks. Marist will be visiting Butler, and UIndy taking on Truman State at 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. Anything else you guys want to throw on? I know there's some basketball notes you wanted to get to, Kevin.
Yeah, Pacer-wise, Monte Morris, the Pacers signed him 1 year, I believe, Tony, you said non-guaranteed deal, so I think that name NBA fans will recognize. Really had a nice run with Denver, battled some injuries and different stops over the last couple of years. I kind of view it, James, as potentially third point guard insurance, and we know Rick Carlisle loves ball handlers. You know, he loves to have multiple of them on the floor. So, again, I don't think necessarily if everyone's healthy, he's competing for major rotational minutes. But if you have an injury in the backcourt, all the Russell Westbrook, Victor Oladipo rumors, looks like Monte Morris will be kind of the option there.
And Thomas Bryant signs with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Shout out to my boy Thomas Bryant.
You need to get a Thomas Bryant Cavs jersey.
Yeah, I should honestly. I think he's my favorite Pacers player last year. One of the funniest players on the team. And I mean that as a compliment because his energy was, you could tell how much he cared. about his teammates, about the moment. And there were a couple of moments there, Kevin, we would laugh about it when we were at the actual finals games, when he would make a play, or even conference finals games as well. And then you kind of have to remind him, hey, like the game's still going on, man. While you're hyping up the crowd and flexing, you got to get back on defense. And so I enjoyed that, and he was certainly a special part of that run. And for those who years and years from now, who look back on that run, we will not forget about Game 6, his 3-pointers
from the
to
corner,
put the
baby.
Knicks out of it. So that was very fun.
John Mateer, quarterback for Oklahoma, broke his thumb in the first quarter of their road win against Auburn this past weekend. He's not going to have surgery and miss a month. Hey, it's amazing that a guy can, on his throwing hand, play for 3.5 quarters with a broken thumb, but also maybe that's a better chance, too, for Fernando Mendoza to win the Heisman Trophy now. What'd you say? He was plus 650 at this point in
Yeah,
time?
I think it was a little higher before the Mateer injury. So, again, plus 650, great odds. Bet $10 to win 65, but, I think to call him like a front runner is probably the better way to call it than favorite.
Right.
Favorite obviously would have to be closer to 50-50 on that. By the way, speaking of quarterbacks, Mark, you've got some Matthew Stafford complimentary audio of Daniel Jones.
Yeah, we can get to that on the other side.
All right, very complimentary words from Matthew Stafford, who does have some connections related to this coaching staff that he mentions about Daniel Jones. We'll play that next.
All right, in a moment, we'll do that. Sports Report brought to you by Bet365. When it comes to sportsbooks, Bet365 has it all. Download the app today and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. This is the Fan Morning Show at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Up and at 'em, getting ready for another week of football coming your way. Pretty good slate of high school football games we'll talk about later on this week, too. But I saw the top rankings for all classes coming out in the Indy Star again this morning. No surprise that Brownsburg is on top once again. Center Grove, New Pal, Carmel, Crown Point. High school football is getting, it has been for a long time, but it's so good in this state. So fun.
Yeah, what are we, week 6 now as well? So sectional play, or sectional draw, I should say, probably just a couple weeks away. And
it is crazy how fast it goes by. Like you blink and it's already halfway through the season.
Shout out to that Knox, Miles McLaughlin. I saw some highlights of him the other day. He's second all time in the state's career rushing list. They treat him like Tim Tebow. It's awesome to watch some of this just like straight up power lead runs they run with him. It honestly is reminiscent of Riley Leonard of the opening drive against Ohio State and how they utilize him. So we'll see if the math plays out, if Knox can get on a playoff run, if he can challenge, speaking of New Pal, Charlie Spiegel and that all-time rushing lead.
A lot more on high school football Friday morning on Operation Football with Channel 13's Dominic Miranda. In the meantime, Colts getting ready for a game this weekend on the road out on the West Coast against the Los Angeles Rams. And Rams have, as we've been talking about, Kevin, a pretty good quarterback named Matthew Stafford. He's been around. He's seen a few things. He's seen a few players. And it was interesting to hear some of his comments this week, was it not?
Indeed, Matthew Stafford, who I thought should have been the Colts quarterback a few cycles ago, but nonetheless, Colts brass did not agree with that, and he moves on to the Rams, and the rest is history with what he's done out there. But he has familiarity with this coaching staff. Jim Bob Cooter, James mentioned this earlier, Colts offensive coordinator, spent, I believe, a handful of seasons with Stafford in Detroit. Stafford made an appearance on Sirius XM earlier this week and had plenty of praise when asked about Daniel Jones and what Daniel Jones has done here in Indy.
I'm happy for him. I really am. I'm a guy that pulls for other quarterbacks to have success. I've thought for a long time that, Daniel has kind of everything you'd want. I mean, he's big. He throws it great. He moves around really well. Seems to be a sharp guy, level-headed kind of human being. So sometimes you just need a change of scenery or a change of pace, and it seems like he's found a groove with the Colts. I know some of the coaches on the Colts coaching staff, some guys that I've worked with in the past. They're smart guys, putting them in position to succeed, which is an awesome thing for him. They got a great running game. Their defense is playing at a high clip. I mean, they don't punt. I mean, this team is playing as good as anybody in the league right now. So it'll be a huge test for us, and I think you got to give Daniel a lot of credit. He took an opportunity last year to go, learn from some guys in Minnesota, and I think that probably helped him out. And then, he's getting his opportunity now. And I think, when guys grab that opportunity, man, you got to give it to them and let them go. And it's really cool to watch guys go through struggles, whether it be their own or the system that they're in or the team they play for, whatever it is. I mean, we had a little bit of that experience when Baker, stopped here for half a season. A bunch of teams were kind of moving on and going around, and Baker got here, got the opportunity to play for Sean for 8 games or 7 games, whatever it was, and really revitalized his career. And look what he's doing in Tampa now. So quarterback, you get better as you go. I feel like as long as your body can hold up, the mental aspect of the game becomes more and more prevalent as you get older. And Daniel's showing that, I think.
Matthew Stafford talking about Daniel Jones, and everybody's calling him too. I've been reading a lot this week about, he's this year's Sam Darnold, but I think he's just this year's Daniel Jones. It remains to be seen what he's going to do for the rest of the season, but he sure looks like a different guy, playing with a lot more confidence and a lot of swag.
Yeah, and I know we both use this for a recent story, Kevin, but talking to Michael Pittman Jr. on Monday after the win, and this was via Zoom, and again, I used the word jolly earlier this week to describe Pittman, and he was jolly about his quarterback, and he was telling us that there is one flaw in Daniel Jones, and it's the fact that he cannot show up to dinner on time, ever, when it comes to their Thursday night meal, because he is too busy doing what? Studying tape, which is the most Daniel Jones description ever. So I got a kick out of that, and he was just telling him, yeah, whenever I call him, he's in the playbook. Same thing that Shane Steichen is experienced with his quarterback. And honestly, talking to other guys around the room, around the locker room, they've echoed the same thing. I was talking to Tyler Goodson after Sunday's game in the locker room, and he was like, yeah, the guy's insane. There is not many times where he's not talking to you about ball and how to hone up all the little details that make the operation work. So Tyler Goodson was saying, yeah, there is no like, hey, how you doing kind of thing. It's more like, hey, did you see that clip I sent you, on your iPad or on your Surface Pro, whatever the case may be. And you're seeing those dividends pay out. But also, one of the quotes that stood out to me from the locker room, I used it in my story today, Kevin. Javarius Ward was saying he's comeback player of the year already, damn near. And he was saying everyone doubted him, and look at what he's going through. And now Javarius Ward, somebody who's been through his own personal stuff, has been doubted for very different reasons. He went through a personal tragedy, but he was saying, I'm very happy for him, and I think his teammates are too, and fans are too. And you've seen that not only from teammates, but former teammates, and then also even opponents, just that respect. Because, again, coming into this, Kevin, he was never a guy that ever had a bad reputation as far as being a bad person. It was always, can he actually play?
Yeah, I don't know if this analogy is a great one, but, when you think to the other, major pro sports team here in town in the Pacers, and the ounce of confidence, or ounces, I should say, probably plural, that the Pacers gave to Tyrese Halliburton, to lesser extents, Aaron Nesmith, Obi Toppin. These guys were all lottery picks. They all, for whatever reason, didn't pan out in their original stop. And you come here, it's a different environment. It's a different level of belief. What do you do when you're confident? I mean, honestly, you could probably get into a psychology sort of examination into that for anybody in, various walks of life. But you watch Daniel Jones quarterback. Somebody said it earlier. It might have been Stephen Holder. We had him on 8 o'clock. It's not like the dude is just out there dumping off every pass to Jonathan Taylor and hoping Jonathan Taylor breaks a tackle and pad stats that way. He's taking shots down the field. He is a willing stay in the pocket when it does get muddy, take some shots down the field. And that I don't think we saw to the degree that we're seeing in New York, certainly. And then again, he's staying away from the negative plays. So he's been consistent. The accuracy has been in stride. His willingness to take some shots down the field. And again, staying away from the negatives. I mean, when you add up all of that, you're going to get a quarterback that is deservedly so on any sort of MVP ballot 3 weeks into a season. And yes, it is September 24th, but you just have to be thoroughly impressed by what Daniel Jones has given the Colts so far.
I want to get the reactions, everybody, on the fan text line at 239-1070. Your thoughts on Daniel Jones so far. You've heard what people like Matthew Stafford are saying. You've been reading what folks locally and nationally have been saying about Daniel Jones this year. Do you believe in him yet after 3 games? What's your thought on that? 239-1070. We'll do some of that in a moment. We'll talk IU football top of the hour as well. James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton. This is 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning, up and Adam here on the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd, Kevin Bowen. I'm Jeff Rickard. Mark Dykton over there on the ones and twos and getting ready for another big weekend of football. Colts will be on the road. Indiana be on the road, taking on Iowa. And our buddy Todd would like us to remind everybody that Purdue has their first bye week this week. So you got that going, too.
They've had the bye week all season. That's all I think of it.
Wow.
They haven't been that bad.
Did you grow up or just wake up in a bad mood this morning?
No, I didn't sleep well, but yeah, I was like, okay. They're not playing, so we don't need to talk about them.
How about some Purdue optimism here? I did the click on a Joe Lenardi bracketology link yesterday.
Oh, you nerd.
You're sicko for that, but continue. I'm actually intrigued.
Joe Lenardi's going to regret not having Notre Dame in the field this year. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Purdue, a 1 seed, sent out west to San Jose. Houston as the top overall seed. Anybody care to guess where he's got the Indiana Hoosiers?
Probably outside looking in. But it's hard to say. I mean, who knows what this team's going to be?
I'm going to say they're going to be an 11 seed.
He's got Indiana as the third team out in the tournament. So team 71. I don't know if we can do another year of Indiana on the bubble. I don't know if
I was going to say, do we have a choice?
I mean, but honestly, how do you project this team right now?
Well, certainly. I mean, when you have the amount of new faces that they do offensively and shooting-wise, they've added a lot from the mid-major ranks, but defensively and rebounding seems to be some question. But, again, Purdue, just to remind everybody, if they are a 1 seed that gets kind of the preferred Midwest route, that route could be a St. Louis, Chicago, Indianapolis NCAA tournament pathway here for the Boilers. So optimism in West Lafayette. Basketball season's what? A little over a month away?
Yeah.
And now we play these great exhibition games, don't we? I think IU plays Baylor at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. I think Purdue's got.
Remember when everybody used to play the exhibition teams, the teams that were just like traveling
athletes in action.
Yeah, athletes in action or
Marathon Oil.
Yep. You remember those games at all, James? You're too young.
Yeah, too young.
All right. Yeah, all these teams used to get just like these traveling former college athletes that would get together and band together for a team, and they'd play everybody for about a month, and then I don't know what they did after that. But I like seeing these early preseason games. It's fun.
I like how they handle it now. I think the marquee exhibition game is starting to put a little bit, like a lot of the proceeds go to charity. And then I also enjoy, I think Indiana's done the play, Pat Knight and Marion here lately, try to also reward some of your kind of smaller schools within the state as well. I think that's a good balance here before the season gets underway.
Well, we're closing in on it pretty quickly. We were talking about Daniel Jones and whether or not people believe in him or not, and already people are starting to ask, is this a guy that's worthy of a franchise tag next year? I think we got a lot of football left to play, though, don't we, James Boyd, before we get to that question?
Yeah, who's asking that?
That would have been an unnamed anonymous texter just with a phone number right there.
Only ask because I feel like that's one way too early, but with each game that passes and obviously performances like this, yes.
It says Mike in the Villages in Florida. I had to go back up to a bunch of texts earlier, but that's who it was.
Shout out to Mike.
Yeah.
Mike in the Villages? Jeez. I need some stories there.
Send Mike a pill that might be the color of the sky.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do think, and I was going through this yesterday. I was looking at all those numbers from Daniel Jones. You got an MVP caliber quarterback through 3 weeks at a premium rate because every list he's on is joined by Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford. And these are all guys who are on big contracts, Jalen Hurts as well. So, yeah, that is going to be a question. And I think the noise around that will be louder when we get to the bye week. So after, the Germany game against the Falcons, that's week 10. You're going to the bye week after that. I think that will be not saying that the Colts should do that, but if they're 7-3 going into the bye, yeah, I think the chatter around a franchise tag and what do you do if they make the playoffs, win the division, those sort of things, that conversation becomes louder. And right now, through 3 games, I can't see a reason as to why you wouldn't want to reward the quarterback for the play that he's had. But again, just 3 games against some bad teams. So you want to see how it stacks up against better competition.
In your site, The Athletic, Jeff Howe has Week 4 quarterback rankings, and he adjusts these each week. But right now, he's got Daniel Jones 11th, kind of in the tier of Matthew Stafford 9, Sam Darnold 10, Jones 11, Kyler Murray 12, and then Dak Prescott 13.
James, I think the Daniel Jones contract debate will be a fascinating one if indeed it continues to
I'm telling you, man, like, again,
down
if we
this
come
path.
bye week, especially because bye week we're bored anyway, nothing going on. If they're 7-3, man, it's a conversation that I'm certainly going to, like, at least entertain. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't consider an extension or whatever, anything until after the season is over. But it's certainly something to entertain if and when that opportunity comes.
And if you're the Jones camp, what do you prefer? Are you sitting here saying, well, franchise tag and then hit the open market at the age of whatever? I mean, he's still under 30, right?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty enticing. Do you want to just say, hey, I just need to take something right now and
Well,
be
I mean, he wouldn't have a choice in that matter because they could put it on him.
Franchise tag, you can slap it on anybody.
Yeah.
But, like, what would they prefer? And then also, I go back to the Chris Ballard quote, the best time to find your new quarterback's when you've got one. So do you try and double dip it all? And, are you saying, you know what? I think we've got one, but just in case that 2022 Giants season is happening here, do you go out and spend an early pick on a quarterback? Like, it just, again, all of this can probably be put on the back burner here until, as James said, post-bye week, probably postseason as well, because, I mean, I'm reminded of this yearly, and we'll probably do this exercise in January. I know the NFL season's only 17 games, but damn, is it a long 17 games. I mean, it is a grind. Like, right now, I mentioned this yesterday, we'd be at the equivalent of game 14 of the Pacers season. The Pacers were 6-8 at this point of the season. 6-8. And they became the last team standing out of the Eastern Conference. They took it to game 7. Like, and again, we're in a league with the NFL where the injury rate's 100%.
Yeah, at some point you're going to get banged up.
And look at these Colts opponents that have lost guys this week. James Conner, out for the year. Najee Harris, out for the year. Nick Bosa, out for the year. I mean, those are 3. And right now, the Colts, again, even if Kenny Moore is only going to miss a couple weeks, the Colts have had a great bill of health, all things considered, through the first 3 weeks. Sure, you've missed Latu, you've missed Ward for a week, but, again, when you're just dealing with the 1-week stuff, you can handle that. It's more of the multi-month, potentially injured reserve, and so far you've avoided that.
Something that was interesting, too, that ties back to Daniel Jones. Russell Wilson has been benched in New York with the Giants. Jackson Dart gets his first start coming up on Sunday. But in the locker room this week, Malik Neighbors was asked about the quarterback play, and he flat out said it wasn't, the quarterback play wasn't the problem before. It's not the problem now. I thought that was an interesting quote from a wide receiver in that locker room that is essentially saying quarterback is far from our biggest problem with the New York Giants. I thought that was pretty interesting. So, for whatever that is worth, that's what's going on. Daniel Jones. Hard to believe, too, that I think we're going to forget one day that he spent that few months in Minnesota after he was kind of banished from the Giants, too, James.
Yeah, and again, they were willing to pay him to stay there and be their guy behind J.J. McCarthy. And if you look at it now, hindsight's 20/20, and obviously just a different path for him now. But he would have been starting for Minnesota last week if he had stayed there, but chose to come to Indianapolis, thought he could beat Anthony Richardson out for the job, and took it from him. And at this point, there is obviously no pathway, at least in my mind, to him ever relinquishing those duties unless he gets injured. And so, knock on some wood here. I don't want injury for any player. But, he's played really, really good football. And like I said, a bigger test awaits in week 4 out in L.A.
I wonder how much you would credit Kevin O'Connell and his staff, like, kind of getting out of New York, kind of seeing how other teams do it and, like, how he would assess them, like, getting him kind of on track and seeing, like, oh, yeah, I can get rid of some of these bad habits and maybe hone my skills elsewhere.
You know what, Mark? I will ask him that later today. How about it? I mean, I do kind of run out of things to ask Daniel Jones because he's not always, the most forthcoming guy. But that is interesting moment you kind of brought up because we do kind of gloss over the fact that he spent a few months with what many to believe the best quarterback whisperer currently in football in Kevin O'Connell.
Even Matthew Stafford brought that up in the the bite that we were playing a little while ago that he had a chance to go learn from some people up in Minnesota is how he phrased it.
Yeah, and again, just 2 months there. So, that's different than Baker's time with the Rams where he actually played, started, I want to say a handful of games with the Rams.
It's still crazy that he, landed and, what was it, 2 days later he's playing in the game and
Thursday
won.
night, right?
It was crazy.
That was nuts. Shout out to him. That takes some cerebral quarterbacking right there because that is not what you see every day. This isn't Madden, but he treated it like Madden that day.
Coming up in a moment, quarterback has not been the problem down in Bloomington. There's no question about that. We're going to check in on the Hoosiers as they get ready to go on the road for a Big Ten matchup at Iowa. That's next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Classic Mark Dykman. What inspired this play? I like it.
Kurt Cignetti. Smoke him if you got him.
I dig it. Yeah, Kurt Cignetti's getting it done. He's getting a lot of accolades all over the place, and why not? All he does is his first year coming over to IU is go to a college football playoff, and now they just roll over a top-rated school, James Boyd. What happened to the Illini last week?
They didn't show up, and which is why I'm wearing this shirt right now, and I'll be wearing some crimson cream for the next couple of days as well. So
got a beautiful display of clothing yesterday from Kevin. That was so well presented.
I know. I sent that clip to my family, and they got a kick out of that, Kevin.
A hot plate of crow.
Yeah.
I thought we were in Prime 47 for a minute, the way you showcased all that.
We get a little crow in the background here, Mark.
Oh.
Just a little
You know
crow
what?
sound.
You could just stick it.
Just one more. Now, are you on the Iowa bandwagon this weekend?
Yes, I'm on every bandwagon against IU for the rest of eternity. Yes. This hate won't end, brother.
I read a piece by Dan Wetzel, great writer, longtime cover of college sports and among a variety of things. And he wrote something on Kurt Cignetti earlier this week, and he had a line in there where he referenced Cignetti as the best coach, especially for that situation. And the more I thought about that, that really, really resonated to me. Like, oftentimes it's like, hey, does the coach win or lose? And obviously Cignetti's resume is tremendous coming into Bloomington. But I feel like they needed someone to call out everyone. They needed someone with the brash nature of him, of like, this is how it's going to be. I'm cocky. I've got the resume to back it up. You guys have been the laughingstock of football for 50-some years. You better follow me. And he called out other teams. He called out people within that university, within that athletic department. He called out the fans. I think they needed that, honestly. Not just a guy that, you can find guys that win and lose, the guys that have strong winning resumes. But I think they need, and at the time, I definitely didn't see that per se. But I think that type of personality, I'm going to walk in this room and you're going to know that I'm in this room, was really, really important for, again, a college football program that had been such a joke.
I was watching, there you go. I was watching some of Todd McShay.
Taste, James?
Yeah.
Again, Mark, cut the cameras. It's time to get the tussling up in here. Matter of fact.
Tussling, here we go.
No.
Here we go.
I'm dead now.
It's over.
What we got to do?
It's over. I'm not
Kevin?
getting in the middle of that. I was
doing a WWE promo or something.
Grab the steel chair. Put him through a table.
Mark's probably got everything you need over there.
Yep.
You guys
the saddest part about that was me trying to, I guess, put some height on Kevin, and I'm trying to tussle up with him, and the guy still is almost as tall as me in the chair. So
he didn't even stand up.
Yeah, that did not look very good on camera.
Yeah, you guys can go mano a mano and pickleball at JMV's remote today over at Pickleball on 10.
That's how we'll settle it?
Yeah. Go that way. No, I was looking at Todd McShay yesterday, and he was talking about Indiana and Kurt Cignetti and what a great job he did last year, in his opinion, with Curtis Rourke. And he said he's done even a better job this off season and in the early part of the season with what he's had to work with Fernando Mendoza so far this year. And to your point, Kevin, he came in, he announced himself, and he's just getting it done. You don't see that all the time in sports. It doesn't happen, especially in college football.
No, it is special stuff. That is certainly true. And what we saw this past week was a special butt whooping.
And Kevin and I were talking about it during the break, too. We're all talking about Fernando Mendoza and that incredible group of skills position players who were busting off touchdown runs left and right. But let's not go to sleep. That defense was rugged, and we didn't know what to expect coming off those first 3 games. But they showed up to play in that one.
I thought the most impressive aspect of the game on Saturday, amongst many, was the D-line. Illinois brought back, I believe, all 5 starters from their own line. And for Pat Kuntz's boys to whip up on them as much as they did, that can be, to me, a separator when you're talking about, hey, is this a top 10 team? Is this a top 5 team? Is this a team hosting a playoff game? To me, if your D-line and your O-line are playing like that, now we talk about Indiana in a different tier.
Yeah. Zach Austerman joining us now on the Payless Liquors hotline, as he's been covering this team and watching them all the way through. And Zach, we've been talking about all the different areas that have played so well. And look, I was chief among them. I've been making fun of those first 3 games and their preseason for the next couple of years. But man, did they show up to play against Illinois. What's been the most impressive part of this team that you've seen so far this year?
I mean, that's a good question, and I think there's a lot of different ways you could take it. I think probably, and I would extend this back to spring camp, fall camp, just the extent to which it really did feel like Indiana was able to put last season in the past, and the extent to which Kurt Cignetti, in a variety of different ways, really tried to make it clear through the offseason that 2024 was over, that Indiana had moved on to 2025. But, success can be addictive, but success can also be destructive, I think, sometimes, especially in college sports. And I've seen teams that maybe got a little bit too, not necessarily big-headed, but almost too complacent. One of Indiana's real superpowers last year was that, I hate buying into narratives or cliches, but that ability to play with a chip on his shoulder, that sort of almost like angry disrespect for a sport that didn't give Indiana the, it just deserves. Being able to sort of maintain that edge, even while changing over the roster, which is just a natural part of modern college football anymore, even given so much of the off-season noise, and maybe some of that helped, I don't know. But just for Indiana to almost come out and be better in some respects. And listen, we're 4 games in. I'm not sitting here. A lot of people have said Indiana's better than they were a year ago. I watched last year's team win 11 games. I've watched this year's team win 4 games. So I'm not prepared to sort of make that declaration. But I think there are reasons to believe that Indiana has improved in some key areas, notably the run game and the line of scrimmage, and that Indiana might, time will tell, but might have an even higher ceiling this year than it did a year ago. And, for Indiana to be able to do that, even through maybe some of the distractions of success, even through, as Cignetti's talked about, having fewer of those guys that he brought with him from James Madison that help him kind of set that culture immediately, that it's got to be more guys doing it organically. It's got to be more guys doing it, from an IU perspective, and not just walking in and saying, hey, this is how we did it at the last place, so just watch us do it and learn. It has been that, I think, that, sort of intangibly has impressed me the most.
Zach Austerman joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. He covers IU for Indy Star. Zach, I'm sitting here today in an IU shirt, and I'll be wearing IU gear all week as an Illinois alum because, man, that was a historic butt whipping. So when you hear a coach say that they broke a team's will and you're able to just validate it by what you saw on the field, I mean, coaches talk all the time. Some of them talk probably a little bit too much for their liking, but, I mean, he backed it up. His team backed it up. And so where do they go from here from a mentality standpoint, and how hungry do you think this team is after sort of proving themselves again on a national stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the hunger piece is probably played out by just how good Indiana was, even when it took its foot off the gas. I mean, I think Indiana attempted something like 4 passes in the second half of that game, and please understand, I'm not rubbing it in against the Illinois.
Oh, don't worry, brother. I have been served crow already.
Who hasn't worn Indiana gear in like 15 years, so you're doing it for doing it for both of us, because I've obviously got to maintain a level of editorial neutrality. But I think there was in the immediate aftermath a lot of Indiana ran up the score, and even Brett Bielema has said that's what you got to do. Everyone has kind of learned that style points will endear you to the committee, but Indiana wasn't really trying to. I think that your question about hunger probably is answered by the extent to which it was second stringers, it was third stringers that were still moving the ball, still getting first down, still scoring. Kobe Martin is he's now Indiana's third string running back. He's their fourth string running back before Lee Beebe got hurt. He's rushed for 100+ yards in what you would generously describe as garbage time of each of these last 2 games. And when it happens against Indiana State, you can say, well, they put in their backups too, and the game was long over and all that. But to do it against a ranked Big Ten team, I think that tells you just kind of where the overall mindset is of this roster. And I think it's sort of one of those things where there's a rush because we are all of us a little bit sort of romantically endeared to what's right in front of us, there is a rush to say, well, Indiana's better this year than they were last year. I've said, I think, to one or two people this week, Indiana could be better this year than they were last year and still win fewer games, because that's the way the schedule is. That's the way the sport works sometimes. But I don't think you can look at what Indiana's done across these first 4 games. And obviously the Illinois game being, the prime example, and not at least believe that Indiana's got that same hunger, that same edge. And these are cliches that reporters don't like leaning on too much, but there's really not much else you can use to describe. When Cignetti said we broke their will, I don't think he was, kind of like Indiana, I don't think was really running up the score. I think he was playing football. I don't think Cignetti in that moment was talking trash or, sort of being overly boastful. I think he was just trying to describe what he saw on the field. And it is what the rest of us saw, which was an Illinois team that admittedly was shorthanded in the secondary. And, there was some mitigation there, and Illinois is probably not a top 10 team over the course of the whole season. But to win that game by 53 points and to do it the way that Indiana did it, they earned that victory. There was nothing fluky about it. I think that tells you kind of where this team's mentality is right now.
Zach Austerman from the Indianapolis Stars covered the Indiana Hoosiers for a long time, does an outstanding job. Zach, when you speak to the differences between this year and last year, could the line of scrimmage, both sides of it, obviously you saw the D-line headline a whole lot Saturday night, is that an area that you do think could be better?
Yeah, I do. I do think that. And I mean, I don't think I'm the only one that thinks that, when a lot of sort of like national people, talking heads, BTN, different, sort of people who aren't, sort of locked in the bubble of a single beat the way somebody like me can be at times, came through in the offseason, came through in the preseason. The offensive line was a group that everyone kind of had their eyes on, because that was where I think you felt like Indiana was, I don't want to say found out, but I think clearly in need of improvement after the Ohio State game, the Notre Dame game last season. That Ohio State game is a great example. People kind of forget because of the way we just, again, get wrapped up in narratives. It was 7-7, near the end of the second quarter of that game, and it was 2 special teams miscues that kind of broke the game open for Ohio State. But the reason why you were allowed to say Indiana was holding its own in that game, but also say it was very hard to imagine Indiana winning that game, was because they just couldn't move the football. After that first drive, which was scripted, it was methodical, it was impressive, Indiana just could not move the football. They could not win at the line of scrimmage at all. And, again, I think there will be tougher tests, certainly this weekend, in 3 weeks at Oregon, et cetera. But I think one of the things that impressed people who, again, aren't locked in the IU bubble so much about the Illinois game is that physicality and, that idea of you aren't going to out-muscle us or out-tough us at the line of scrimmage, that is a hallmark of Brett Bielema teams. And Indiana fans know that too well from some of the beatings that Brett Bielema's Wisconsin teams put on them. He scored 83 points against them in 2010, 62 points against them in 2012. I think what impressed people, maybe nationally looking at it from a 10,000-foot view, was how much more physical Indiana looked. And obviously, defensively, I think, I heard you talking about Pat Kuntz, Abuda Williams, Brian Haynes. I think they deserve a ton of credit for the way they have developed a defensive line that had to replace a lot of pieces. They got Mikael Kamara back. He's actually probably been a little bit quieter than what we expected here through the first 4 weeks of the season. I think he's getting a lot more attention from opposing offensive lines, but that's allowed Hosea Wheeler, Dominic Ratcliffe, Mario Landino, Kellen Wyatt, Stephen Daly, all these new faces or young players that are coming up, Tyreek Tucker to go make plays. But the defensive line, you kind of looked at and said, hey, last year, the last 2-3 years, really, if you want to go back to JMU, that group, the coaches handling that group got it right, got it to a place where it was prepared to compete at that level. It was the offensive line that you felt like Indiana needed to take that step forward this year. And again, it's 4 games in. There are some tough road tests coming. You're going to play a team this weekend that's going to challenge you physically again. Then you're going to have to go to Oregon in 3 weeks. But that is an area that even since the offseason, since the spring, since the summer, since fall camp, it has felt like anyone who's laid eyes on this team has identified it as an area of improvement. And I think through the first 4 games, we're seeing that play out.
Zach, last one from me, a part apology before I ask the question. I don't think you'll need to write something like this, but we actually got one of these questions while you were on, and you look around the college football landscape right now. We'll see about Clemson at the end of the season. We'll see about Alabama at the end of the season. We'll see about Florida at the end of the season. We could have some rather notable openings. I did an extension through 2032 for whatever it was, $8 million annually. Is that kind of speak for itself, or are you going to have to write one of these? What happens if the big schools down south come calling for Curt Cignetti articles again?
Yeah, I never say never with that stuff. I mean, number one, I think even in the portal era, probably part of the reason why Curt Cignetti made it as long as he did without a Power 4 school scooping him up was his age and where he was in his career. And listen, I think he's proven, that to be a pretty bad way of thinking about evaluating him as a coach. But still, he'll be 65 by the time next season starts. A lot of places are going to want to feel like there's a better long-term plan. In the portal era, though, I think maybe you can get a school or two that just says, if we can win now, we can build on it. Even if this is only for 5, 7, 8 years, Cignetti's suggested he wants to coach until he's 75, I think is the number he's thrown out before. Then, again, all it takes is one. I would point out a few things. Number one, Indiana has more money. I don't want to say they have more money than Clemson, but I do think that people need to appreciate the financial gap between the Big Ten and the ACC. Now, that doesn't exist in the SEC. I say this as someone who grew up down there. SEC schools are also just kind of weird sometimes. Like, there were people at Alabama that didn't want to hire Nick Saban when they pulled him back from the NFL. That is just the nature of that conference and sort of the insularity of those fan bases. It's very strange. I also think there are going to be some pretty appealing top line candidates down in that part of the world this year. I think John Sumrall, Alex Golesh. If a Florida or an Alabama opens, I wouldn't be stunned if they take a run at Lane Kiffin, who has done really well at Ole Miss. Maybe he wants to stay. Who knows? I also, again, I don't like it's really easy to say, oh, he's happy here, he'll never leave. I do get the sense Cignetti is very pleased with the structure that he has here, with the sort of continued level of investment financially from the athletics department. I think some of that, it shouldn't be lost on people that some of that is coming from the university as well. It was the university that loaned the athletics department roughly $30+ million, mostly to cover the cost of the coaching transition between Tom Allen and Curt Cignetti. The athletics department handed, for example, Curt Cignetti's strength and conditioning coach 2 new contracts in the offseason to make sure he stuck around. Indiana is bought into the idea of trying to make this work. It understands how important football success and football agency is going to be for schools in the next 5 to 10 years in college athletics, and it is going to do everything it can to remain where it has gotten to under Curt Cignetti. That doesn't mean I can stand here and say unequivocally there is no chance that anyone could turn his head. Again, all it takes is one. But I do think it's important, the way I would frame it more than anything else is that I do think it is important to recognize that Indiana financially is not what we would have thought of Indiana as 10 years ago. There is a level of financial competitiveness for any team, frankly, in the Big Ten, but certainly one that has been pretty fiscally responsible across the last 10 to 15 years, that has updated a lot of its facilities, that has been smart about how it spent its money, and that is pretty clearly pushing more and more of it into football to get relevant and stay relevant when it matters as much as it does now. The calculus on whether it's going to be easy for a big school to pull a coach away from Indiana has changed a little bit. I'm not going to guarantee that it's impossible, but it has changed.
Always good to talk to you, Zach. Thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate it. Enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Always good to get his insights and joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. I don't know, man. Indiana sure looks like they're for real and looks like they got some staying power, James Boyd. And I'm not saying that in the context of what we've been messing around with, but that was a good-looking football program last Saturday.
I just look down whenever I want to try to forget what happened.
James, you ever covered a game at Iowa City, Kinnick Stadium?
I've not, actually. I left the Illinois beat very quickly, I want to say. I didn't cover, like, the full Illinois road schedule. I think they had Iowa that year, actually, the one year I did, but then I came down here to cover the Pacers, so missed that. But, yeah, they say it's a really good environment and a hard place to play as well.
Yeah, I mean, it should be it'll get you ready, I think, for Autzen and Happy Valley later on the schedule. A little over touchdown favorite. Iowa did see yesterday Kirk Ferentz announced their starting running back will not play here coming up on Saturday afternoon.
All right, let's get to a check down real quick.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good news and bad news for the Indiana Fever. The good news is they took Game 1 of their best-of-5 series against the Las Vegas Aces in the semifinals of the WNBA postseason a couple of days ago. But last night, Vegas strikes back with a 90-68 victory. They tied the series at 1. Asia Wilson, 25 points, 9 rebounds. Former Fever player Nelissa Smith, 18 points, 7 boards. Chelsea Gray had 10 assists. Odyssey Sims leading the way for the Fever with 18 points, 7 assists. Lexi Hall tied a Fever postseason record with 5 made three-pointers. She had 15 points, but not enough. They return to Indiana at the Fieldhouse. Game 3 comes up Friday night, James Boyd. And in Game 1, Indiana kind of took it physically to the Aces. Last night, the Aces were the more aggressive team. What do we see in Game 3?
Yeah, I hope we see some better officiating. I thought the game was way too physical last night on both sides of the ball. But also, I mean, basketball's not rocket science. It's very simple. You got to take care of the ball, too. I thought the Fever were kind of careless with the basketball. You can't be like that against a team. That will certainly make you pay for it. I'm looking here. The Aces scored 28 points off turnovers yesterday. So got to take care of the ball when your margin for error is a lot smaller, I think, on your side than on their side where they have the 4 Olympians.
All right, National Football League, Week 4 comes into play. Thursday night game coming your way tomorrow night. Seattle Seahawks take on the Arizona Cardinals. We, of course, are focused on Sunday afternoon when the Indianapolis Colts take on the Los Angeles Rams. Colts get back to work today, getting ready for that football game. What's the injury watch today as you guys go listen to Shane Steichen later this morning?
Yeah, does Alec Pierce practice? Where is he at in concussion protocol? I would say normally, James, I don't know, what do you think? 80-90% of the time when a guy suffers a concussion in a game, he usually doesn't play that next week. I don't know, those are kind of random numbers to throw out, but it seems like very unlikely. But still, where is Pierce at? And then Kenny Moore, how long will he be out? Those are probably the two things to keep an eye on, and just anything else. Occasionally you'll have a guy that is added after not feeling maybe anything Sunday during that game. So those are the things to watch.
All right, college football. We just got done talking about Indiana football. They are 7.5-point favorites for their road trip to Iowa. That'll be a 3:30 Saturday afternoon game. Notre Dame is in high noon against the SEC's Arkansas Razorbacks. Chance for Notre Dame to keep building on what they did last week, Kevin.
Big one. Arkansas can score a lot, and Notre Dame has had major issues in defending teams.
You sound worried.
I think anytime you go on the road in the SEC, right, you got to be a little worried. I mean, that spread keeps on shrinking. It's a lot closer to 3 than it was at the start of the week there. So, again, a couple road favorites. It's a great college football slate. Even not, Notre Dame on the road, IU on the road. You get to Ole Miss, LSU. Can James Franklin finally win the big one? Penn State, Oregon, and then Bama, Georgia. So this is not a pumpkin patch Saturday, folks.
No.
Put the pumpkin patch on hold. You can do the apple orchard next week, Dykton family. We got college football to watch.
Hear that, Ashley? Kevin says it, so make it true.
Yeah, I'm picturing Ashley now being like, yeah, and we're gonna do what I want to do anyway.
Charge that phone for October.
Charge that phone, brother.
Too early in fall for that stuff.
Purdue can go to the apple orchards this weekend. They have a bye week, so we'll see what they end up doing.
Tell Todd Meyer to join them.
Yeah, he'll kick rocks.
He'll get a hayride. It'll be good. All right, Major League Baseball. Cincinnati Reds are now a game behind the New York Mets for that last wild card spot in the National League. They lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates 4-2, but that's just because the Mets rallied from a 6-1 deficit to beat your Chicago Cubs, Mark Dykton. Where's the sad trombone for that one?
The greater good is just getting the Reds out of the playoffs. That's the main goal right now. We could lose the rest of the season.
They're working on it.
I know.
Mark,
They're doing a great job so far.
In my Reds buddy group text, there's 4 of us in there that are fans.
That sounds like a sad group.
I sent the W flag.
Support group.
When it was 6-1, I sent fly the W.
I thought I thought you were off the Reds bandwagon. Now you're in a group chat.
No,
sending W flag.
Let
gifts?
me be clear. I want them to be in the playoffs, but if for a month you've said they're dead and now they start winning, you have to continue to say they're dead, right?
Don't look now, but here come the Red Legs.
Well, now you're playing with fire. Jeff has revived them. I have not, so I've got to continue to play their 6 feet under card. And Jeff single-handedly put the Reds back into this.
Text line disagrees. They think that your
sort of position
calling them dead has revived them.
It's called reverse fandom psychology.
Where's Matt Taylor fall on that scale? You think he's killed them?
He thinks they're dead. He thinks they're deader than I do.
Are the Detroit Tigers dead? They once had a 12.5 game lead in the American League Central not that long ago. They've lost 7 straight. The Guardians beat them 5-2 last night, and the Guardians and Tigers are now tied for the Central lead in the American League. It'll be fun to watch that one play it over the next few days.
Give Michael Grady a hug. That is brutal.
Oof. And the New York Yankees defeated the Chicago White Sox yesterday 3-2. Cardinals got a win over the Giants. I think I said that 9-8 was the final score there later tonight. Reds will try again against the Pirates, 6:40 over at the Great American
Paul
Ballpark.
Skeens against Hunter Green.
It's going to be a good one. Mm-hmm. And the Chicago Cubs will try again against the New York Mets.
No, lose out. Make the Reds suffer. Make them get, again, this close and then beat them over the head with a bag of nickels.
Oh, that's graphic.
Mariners punched their ticket in the American League playoffs last night. Now they're hoping to win one more game, and they will then clinch the American League West. Anything else anybody wants to throw in?
No,
Mark.
I'm just thinking about Mark's bag of nickels. Where'd you get his bag of nickels in today's society?
Mark can kiss my ass.
Sock full of soap does the same thing. Whatever you want to do.
Well, that's how I felt
Get
after
them to the finish line, and then as they're about to touch, knock them down.
That's how I felt.
Knock them down.
Illinois IU game, but it was from the very beginning, not the end.
Fan Morning Show rolls on next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We have been talking about college football all morning long, and with good reason. Indiana's off to a fantastic start, had a big game and a big win in the Big Ten for their conference opener this past week. Here's something, though, that's crazy. As we look at power in college football, and everybody always thinks, the SEC's got everything, this, that, or the other thing. Right now, Tom Fornelli listed this today on CBS. The top 5 highest-rated quarterbacks in college football are all from the Big Ten right now. 4 weeks into the season. 4 games completed.
And that's what happens when you play cupcakes in the non-conference.
But, even after that, though, Dylan Raiola at Nebraska is number 14. Luke Altmaier, despite the loss, is number 15. And Michigan State's Aiden Childs is 18th. And yes, you can talk about the cupcakes, but the quarterbacks are playing really good football in the Big Ten these days. It's true. So it's been fun to watch, and I can't wait to see what Fernando Mendoza does with this platform. And it all comes down to what you were talking about a minute ago. How do they play against Penn State? How do they play against Oregon? When they play their big games, who steps up in the spotlight? Boy,
Mendoza was so good on Saturday night. That 3rd and goal touchdown he had to E.J. Williams early in the game. That's a Sunday throw. And I think you're starting to see, why the NFL scouts were gushing about him before the start of the season. And, now I guess this is kind of the next test, which, you kind of feel this way about almost the Colts start to this season. Like, if you're skeptical on the Colts right now, are you just a hater?
No, I think you're probably still being a bit realistic.
Going off of recent
skittish
history.
Still. Yeah, you're still skittish. You're like that.
Because that's kind of what we value football last year, didn't we? Didn't we say, well, they haven't played anybody? Well, are you a hater, or were you kind of right, I guess, when Ohio State and Notre Dame showed up? It's these weird things that we start to get into these teams, and it's like, okay, are they legit? Like, how far up are you going on the old tier ranking?
Yeah.
With, last year Indiana from a schedule standpoint, and I guess a little bit this year. Although, again, I think when you beat a team 63-10, it doesn't matter. And I think the Colts deserve that as well. The Colts have done something twice in 3 weeks we haven't seen them do in 4 years. So that's why I'm really looking forward, I think, to not only this Saturday, but I guess it's kind of 2 weeks down the road for Indiana. Now we're starting to get into legit competition, away from home competition. Here's some adversity. How do you handle it? Both for the Colts coming up on Sunday, and then for Indiana. I don't know if Indiana will feel it to the degree this Saturday, but certainly a trip to Oregon here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and you bring up the Colts, and we talked about it earlier. Like, this is a team that's got a Super Bowl winning coach, a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They've got Devontae Adams, who had a spectacular run as a wide receiver and looked pretty good so far the first couple of weeks now that he's in Los Angeles. Puka Nacua is like the next big thing as a wide receiver. Kyron Williams has been terrific as a running back especially last year. And the defense, as you've been pointing out, Kevin, is better than people give them credit for. This is a big, true test, James, for the Indianapolis Colts this week, and it's a road game, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to seeing my buddy Nate Atkins, who now covers the Rams, previously covered the Colts. He's with us at The Athletic, and I'm going to square up with him in the press box when I see him.
Kind of like you just did with Kevin, till he stands up.
I got to fight somebody. They always say you can't lose the game and the fight, right? You got to do something. But getting back to
Steichen might be using the Nate Atkins Bolton board material this week. Didn't he dunk on our city on the way out?
Yeah, which he really didn't, but I definitely.
Saturday night at the team hotel, wow. Shane Steichen
he
might
said
need to
something
throw that
about,
up on the projector.
Wanting to get back to a big market. I believe he will be on, I want to say, tomorrow or sometime this week with Jake and JMV. So I told him, because I reached out to him, Kevin, I said, hey, you want to come on the morning show? And he hit me with, well, I'm on the other show the same day, so can't really do both. I was like, all right,
He just wants to sleep.
A little double dip there. You never hurt anybody. But no, getting back to the actual game itself, this is a real test. I think the Rams every year are a perennially good team. Yes, they've kind of bottomed out a couple of years in there, but they've reset so fast and kind of made it work still, despite, having so many changes. They still have that Super Bowl winning quarterback in Matthew Stafford, Super Bowl winning head coach and Sean McVay, and those two guys together have given a lot of teams fits throughout the years. And so if you want to, I guess, gain more respect, you go out there and take it in L.A.
And one thing, too, to note about Sean McVay, and I think Shane Steichen as well, those are two coaches that are head coaches that call the plays. And yesterday, what do we see in Tennessee? We saw a head coach give up play calling duties.
Yeah,
and it's just a reminder that it's a lot on both of those guys' plates. And I don't want to act like Shane Steichen has accomplished what Sean McVay has accomplished yet in the NFL, but those are two, I think, very, very well thought of offensive minds, and handling that entire operation is difficult. And again, Sean has done it probably as well as about anybody. Andy Reid, of course, would be up there as well, from someone that does all of that stuff, play calling and head coach. And Shane Steichen is off to a great start. Admitted growth that he had after year 2, but has definitely done it at an extremely high level here in year 3.
Isn't the handing off play calling duties when you're an offensive minded head coach, that's the first sign that you're probably going to be out of a job soon?
Well,
like the whole point of you being hired was, well, we want this consistency and everything.
Yeah, normally
like that.
you are right. The one exception to the rule is Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the poster child of it. And what if the Eagles won 19 of 20 or 20 of 21?
All they did was win a Super Bowl when he did that. Right?
Something ridiculous. And, of course, he handed them off to Shane Steichen. So, yes, Mark, I think oftentimes that is. And, Tennessee's got the awkward thing where it's like they hired – Tennessee should have never fired Mike Vrabel. Can we go back to that for a second here? I mean, what? I didn't get that at all. And they've had some weird GM situations there, and I think ownership.
I think it became a power struggle behind the scenes, if I remember right, back in Tennessee.
Just so, Vrabel, hell, he had low key, I think, earned the right there to possibly have some, roster management stuff there. But I think they are regarding that.
Yeah. You look at the NFC West right now, too, and everybody is above 500. It's just 3 games in. And even though San Francisco's in the lead at 3-0, the computer models still say that the Rams are the favorite there with a 51.3% chance of making the playoffs for whatever that is worth. But just interesting, the Rams are a blocked field goal return away from also themselves being undefeated, and they did that on the road against the defending Super Bowl champion. So this is the real deal coming up this week, and I'm curious to see how well the Colts are going to do, and if, maybe we get a shootout this weekend. Maybe we need to win a shootout.
One of the bigger over-unders in the NFL in Week 4, 48.5 as the Colts are about a field goal underdog in this one.
That late slate on Sunday, there's some sexy games on there. Colts, Rams, Ravens, Chiefs. Sign me up for that.
Sounds like you're not going to pumpkin patching Saturday or Sunday.
No, I mean, and then the Bears are playing the Raiders at 4:15.
You might win that game.
It's a trio of games that I'm going to be locked in and ready to go. I hope I'm saying nice words like I was last Sunday, not 4-letter words I was saying the last 2 Sundays.
We'll talk about some of those lines and get you ready to go for your Wednesday in a moment as we continue. Fan Morning Show at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Kevin Bowen making sure James Boyd is back with his Hoosier t-shirt.
Looks good on me because I look good. The shirt looks terrible, though. Waste of money.
I think we're just going to leave that one alone. By the way, Todd Meyer said good morning to you, too, in his very special way.
Yeah.
Mark Dykton.
I appreciate being called number one. That's fine. I think I am number one.
Interesting. I did want to talk a little bit on the way out about college football and its changing landscape, and we talk about NIL all the time, and it's been a tough run for Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. They've lost 11 games in a row, and so he is out at Oklahoma State yesterday.
That ain't true.
Yes, it is true.
And the athletic director wanted to thank him for showing what is possible at Oklahoma State. You know, you can win Big 12 championships, you can get to the college football playoff and all those kinds of things. But I also talked about this is not an inexpensive team, Kevin Bowen, and they expect more. And I wonder if we're going to see things like mid-season and early season firings as things go on, because boosters and schools are spending a lot of money on these rosters now.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Yeah, I think it's definitely, I guess, a domino effect off of it. College athletics will be viewed a little bit more like pro sports, frankly, and patience is going to be shorter, not only with the coaching staffs, but I'd argue with players too. You know, if I'm said booster funding whatever, significant portion of said players' NIL, I'm probably going to want to see some results, and I think you're going to get into a lot of really tricky and awkward language with some of that. And so, yeah, the Gundy thing was, probably coming here for the last few years. Oklahoma State's really fallen off a cliff recently here, and but boy, he's probably one of the longer tenured college football coaches at his respective school.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
I mean, yeah, 18 years ago was that rant.
Gosh, 18 years. That's crazy.
Wow. That is a long time. And I wonder what it means, for traditional non-powers in the athletic department like Indiana or Purdue. Indiana seems to be adapting pretty well, and we'll see what the basketball program looks like now with Tavreez there and a brand new roster. But overall, James, are these two schools that compete, that can compete financially year in, year out, decade in, decade out moving forward?
It's a big question. You're talking about decade in, decade out, but so far so good. I don't know. It's hard to always predict that stuff because the landscape changes so often.
We have some sad news to pass along, not to bring down the mood of the room, but Nancy Leonard has reportedly passed away at the age of 93.
Wow.
Yes, let's hear from Greg Doyle. Greg mentioning here, with sorrow, the children of Bob and Nancy Leonard announced the peaceful passing of our mother last night. Her health steadily declined in recent months, but her will to get the most out of life never wavered, as evidenced by her insistence on attending Pacer games this past season at 93 years young. She'll always be the Pacers' #1 fan. Our family extends a heartfelt thank you to all who lovingly touched Mom's life during her incredible earthly journey. We are especially grateful to her wonderful caregivers and healthcare teams. Dad joins us in shouting, "Boom, baby." Again, Greg Doyle releasing that statement from the family. I think it probably goes without saying in this market to our listeners what Nancy Leonard meant to the Pacers franchise, and the Pacers franchise still existing. I think it's been pretty cool to see the documentary around the telethon that happened, probably 50 years ago at this point, 40, 50 years ago, that helped keep the Pacers in our great state. And I don't know, part of me thinks that she and Slick will have a lot of memories to talk about with this Pacers season, and they might have some needed rooting interest from up top coming on Friday night, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the Pacers would not be in Indianapolis without Nancy Leonard, who saved the franchise with the telethon. And then on top of that, if I do remember correctly, Kevin, after they punched their ticket to the finals, Miles Turner, one of the first people he hugged after that was Nancy Leonard.
One of my favorite moments probably of that entire
the matriarch
run,
of the Pacers franchise. So rest in peace to her, condolences to her family, but certainly a legacy that is truly one of one.
Yeah, and Mark, you know better than anybody, when Slick was around, he was a really good friend of the morning show. He would come on all the time. We would have great conversations. By extension, we got to know Nancy as more than just, this public person. You said 93, Kevin, right? That's a heck of a run. But Mark, you and I just locked eyes, and I think we kind of both had a little gut punch right there.
Yep. She would usually be the one that answered the phone, like, is Slick there? She's like, yeah, I'm here too. So she'd hop on every once in a while with us. They were two of the nicest humans you will ever meet. And yeah, very sad to see that they've gone, because obviously the legacy that they leave behind in Indiana sports and just being just amazing people, they will be greatly missed.
I know I shared this when Slick passed, but I worked at Plum Creek Golf Course when I was in high school and a little bit of my college years, and Slick would play there quite often. They called themselves the Old Farts. A bunch of older guys come out and play on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Slick was a part of that group. And, his health at that point, I don't think allowed him to play 18 holes necessarily every single, week. And so sometimes he'd only play 9 or 12 or something like that. And then he'd come over by the cart barn and kind of sit there and just chat. And what would want to chat with us? I mean, like, the cart boys. I mean, we were about as low as they come in terms of golf course workers out there. And some of my favorite memories, just chatting with Slick and the genuine conversation that he would have with us. And by all accounts, I didn't know Nancy very well. Said hi to her at Pacer games, but that was about it. Yeah, I mean, just an unbelievable figure in that franchise. And rest in peace to a great, great woman.
Well, Slick has the statue at the Children's Museum. Nancy sure as hell deserves a statue with the impact that she had as
Amen
well.
to that.
Somewhere, yeah. No question about that. And again, these are the foundational pieces of the Indiana Pacers, the team that makes that run to the NBA Finals. And I think we all were missing Slick during that amazing run and always thinking about what he and Nancy would think about that run and how much fun they'd be having with it. Not so much what they'd think about it, but how much fun they'd be having with it. And it's just it's difficult, even though we lost Slick a little while ago, it's difficult to comprehend an Indiana sports scene without either Bob or Nancy Leonard right now. It really is. And I know, like I said, 93 is a terrific run, and all the things that both of them did with their lives, meaningful, impactful, making this city a better place, making the sports culture what it was. And I know we could go on and with good reason to, but that's just a tough one to take this morning, Mark. Just tough.
That's a definition of a gut punch.
I'm trying to. Where did that telethon recently? Where did that re-air? Was it like a? I'm thinking of like a. Was it John Green put that together? I don't know where I watched it.
I think I saw it on PBS.
Like PBS. Okay, yeah, that was kind of popping in my head. But James, that was a great point you brought up about Miles Turner's embrace of Nancy Leonard, and yeah, I mean to think ago, what was that? 3 months ago? She was there at one of the biggest games in franchise history. So thoughts with the entire Leonard family and the Pacers family as well.
All right. That's a tough one to end on. We'll talk about the life and legacy of Nancy Leonard a little bit more tomorrow, I'm sure. Thoughts and prayers with all of the Leonard family. They are terrific people, and we're all with you today here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. For James Boyd and Kevin Bowen, and certainly for Mark Dykton, I'm Jeff Rickard, and we'll talk a little bit more about all of that. Jake will have a lot this afternoon at noon. JMV at 3. Please enjoy your